Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Joe N. Idelett Jr. TEC. The time is 5:30. The date is May 23rd. At this time, we will have the presentations and awards, and I would like to recognize Dr. Moore. You have the floor because we have some great things tonight.
Absolutely, and congratulations on chairing your first meeting. We're excited for you to swing the gavel, I guess. We do have a number of presentations as we celebrate the great things that happen here in the School District of Indian River County, so I'll turn it over to our Public Information Officer, Ms. Maddox.
Hello. I'm very excited that we finally got the Sebastian River High School Jazz Combo here, live and in person, to kick off the summer under the direction of Mr. Chase Jones. We have the Sebastian River High School Jazz Combo.
Good job.
All right, let's give another round of applause for our soloists. And if you guys would just stay put for 1 second so we can get a photo. Board members, if you would stand up behind them, please.
Thank you. Congratulations.
There you go, guys.
For our next presentation, we are going to be recognizing some of our athletes from both Vero Beach High School and Sebastian River High School. These athletes have absolutely amazed us this year. We have had so many teams qualify for state, go to state, state champion, runner-up. I mean, I could go on forever, but I will let them come out so you can see for yourself. And board members, we're going to take a picture with each team after they come out, so you might want to keep standing after the first one. All right, from Sebastian River High School, we have Athletic Director Terry Amy, and she is over there in the corner. Everyone say hi, Terry. Our first team is boys cross country, coached by Marianne Day.
Oh, here we go.
All right.
Way to go, guys. Yeah.
All right, board members, if you would please stand up for a photo.
We got parents coming in. So
All right, thank you so much, cross country. If you guys, if you want to go right out, there's not really room here, sorry.
we're used to being on the move.
Our next athletes are our track and field athletes under the direction of Coach Tyrone Perry and Chris Jefferson. And if you noticed, we had some come back up from the cross country, so they're talented in many different sports. All right. Thank you so much. Next, we have swimming under the direction of Coach Scott Barlow. And Coach, if you'd like to come over here and let us know what they qualified for, what they won, that'd be amazing.
Yes.
I'll try. I can remember.
Sorry. You dropped. I love that thing.
Okay, swimming. We have first Mary Toomey, freshman. Mary qualified for the state championship finals in the 500 freestyle. We got Jace Stompster, if you step forward, Jace and Nash and Casey. They were members of the 200 medley relay and the 400 freestyle relay, which was also state qualifiers. Okay. We have Nick Jackman, who's a senior who will be swimming in college as well in Pennsylvania. He qualified. He was a finalist in the 500 freestyle. We have Mikey Hill. He's a senior as well. He'll be attending FSU. He qualified state finals in the 200 individual medley and the 100-yard breaststroke. And finally, Mitchell Ledford. He actually qualified in both events. He was 4th place in the 200 freestyle. He was 1st place. He was a state champion in the 100 butterfly and also swam a time fast enough to be automatic All-American. There's the swim team. Thank you.
Very good. Congratulations, guys.
Oh, we're going to get a picture now with the coach.
Sharks can swim.
Yeah. Exactly. to go, guys.
Congratulations.
And our track and field team, just to rewind a little bit, they were all state qualifiers who saw up there. So again, a very talented group of individuals. Our next group, we have boys and girls wrestling with Coach Jerry Knight. Coach, if you'd like to come up and let us know what your team did. I don't expect you to remember like details, but.
So we have Claire Betts. Sorry. Claire Betts. I'm sorry. I'm so horrible in front of crowds. This is killing me. She's our only girl that wrestles on the team. She wrestled 120, and she was a state qualifier. Finished, ended up ranked in the top 12 in the state. All right. Kylan McQueen, he ended up being a state placer in the top 8. Two-time state qualifier.
That's pretty good.
I'm getting there. Trey Rhodes, he's a state qualifier this year. He finished ended up ranked in the top 12 also. And Ralph, he's a 2-time state qualifier, state placer in the top 8 this year also. We have 2 wrestlers that couldn't make it. Jonathan Tummelin, he was our 182-pounder. He's a state qualifier as a sophomore. And he finished, ranked in the top 12 in the state. And Nico Huff also finished ranked in the top 12 in the state. And he's a 2-time state qualifier. He's a junior this year, and they weren't able to make it though. Anything else?
All right, join your team for a photo. Next, we have Vero Beach High School Athletics with the athletic director, Lenny Jankowski.
And let's give our parents a big round of applause for their support. We know for a fact that we would not be able to make it without you. But however, to organize all of the athletics at Sebastian River High School, we have AD Amy Terry. Say a little something, please.
Wasn't prepared for this because I wasn't told I was speaking, but I'm very proud of all of our athletes that came out today. It was a little bit of work trying to get some of these seniors to come back. They were proud of what they did and all that they accomplished. A few of our coaches weren't here today because they are at their spring football game. Track and field, we had a few qualifiers. Aaron Pena won 2 gold medals in the adaptive wheelchair in the 200 and the 800. And we also had a 7th place pole vaulter, which was Aiden Hatch. And we had a 3rd place finisher, which is Ja'Cory Clark in the discus for us. And we're very proud of all of them, and they did a great job this year. Thank you.
Okay, we have Vero Beach High School Unified Flag Football Team with coaches Stephen Bird and Todd Wood. And coaches, after your picture, come up and tell us what your team did.
All right, my name's Stephen Bird, and I'm one of the coaches on Unified Flag Football. If you're not familiar with Unified, it was actually brought to our state by Dr. Peggy Jones. Round of applause for her. Okay. She was a big influence on Unified and getting it partnered up with FHSAA. So what Unified is, it takes students with disabilities and without, and they partner up together on the same team. So our flag football team seen here is missing a few guys. We're a 9-man roster. We got Jalen Pierre, Connor Keeler, Jackson Rahal, Marquise Baxton, and Everett Hillard is a ball boy. He's a great one, too. So we played teams throughout the state, and we got to play our state championship in Raymond James Stadium, home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that was really cool. We got to tour their locker room, and what Unified, it's a branch of Special Olympics. It's really cool because it, you know, I don't know if you know anything about Special Olympics, but they have a lot of money, and they like to spend it on our Unified program. And these boys, we travel first class. We stay in first class hotels, and you know, we have a lot of fun. Everything's paid for. Our school district does not pay a dime for these young men and young ladies, and we like to have fun, and it's all about inclusion. So thank you.
All right, congratulations, flag football team.
Good job, congratulations.
And we have unified track. Same coaches, Stephen Bird and Todd Wood.
All right, well, I won't have to give the spill what Unified is again, but these young ladies right here, they represented Vero Beach High School along with hundreds of other schools at Gainesville a few weeks ago. Or was it last week? I know this time has flown by, but we were up there at the University of Florida. We got to tour the swamp, and they leave that thing wide open. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but we went to the stadium, we got to tour, and then we went and we raced that night. Raced against a lot of schools. Both our girls 4x100 and 4x400 relay races finished second in the state. And last year we actually won state championships. So I was a little disappointed with second, but there's nothing to hang our head on. So these young ladies did an awesome job. So thank you, girls, and we're looking forward. They're all coming back next year, so we're gonna give Lily a heck of a run again next year. Thank you.
Good job.
Congratulations. Now we have girls tennis with coaches Paula Hoxema and James Van Denise. They're here. There's a lot of kids back there. All right, girls tennis, here they come. Coach, you can't avoid the picture. Coach, would you like to brag on your team a little bit?
Sure. I can get through.
You made it.
I can make it through. These girls played really well this season. Manuela and her partner Grace won the state championship for doubles. And the girls were the state runner-up for the team, for the state, and they played their hearts out, and it could have gone either way, and unfortunately we lost, but I'm really proud of them. They've worked hard for this.
Good job.
Congratulations, ladies. Everyone, did everyone get photos? Mom and dads? And okay. Thank you. Congratulations, girls tennis.
Back to the court.
Next, we have girls lacrosse. You might have heard about them. Coaches Shannon Dean, Todd Wood, and Madison Alderman.
They're still looking serious.
We might have to make a couple rows, ladies, if some of you want to come down on this end.
I love the back of their shirts. That's cool. Good job.
All right, somebody tell us about them.
Coach.
Coach?
All right, Coach Dean, would you like to come over, share about your team?
Not much room to get in here. I'll be real quick here, but I just finished up my 27th year coaching at Vero Beach High School. And I have to say, this past year has been one of the most exciting, successful, and most fun I have had in a lot of years. So it was a great season for us, but what makes that work is great support from our school, amazing parents, and of course these girls right here. So give them another round of applause for me. Thank you.
All right, congratulations, girls lacrosse. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good job, girls. Way to go.
If you want to go back out that door, we might
Thank you, sir.
be a little easier. Next, we have beach volleyball, and they could not be here with us tonight, but I still wanted to make sure that everyone knew our beach volleyball team was involved in the state competitions, and the coaches are Wes Hawkins and Matt Heath. And we just found out some very exciting news. Madeline Shields, would you please come up for Vero Beach High School swimming? Here she comes. So Madeline just qualified for state in the 100 fly and 100 backstroke, correct? Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Way to go.
All right.
Bring it home.
So congratulations to all of our athletes and their coaches. Thank you for being here tonight.
Again, we would like to say thank you, and we cannot forget our teachers. We know that it's a lot of work to do everything the state orders us to do within the classroom, but a lot of times with our athletes, we have to do additional work. And this is a product of great work, and it takes a village, and we want to thank all of the teachers that were involved. Also, Coach Wood just walked in, and he was with the Unified Sports, so we want to give him a round of applause, he and his wife, Jessica Wood, who's a guidance counselor. Thank you.
And I know he really doesn't need an introduction, but this is Mr. Eric Seymour. He is the Assistant Superintendent of Student Affairs, Advocacy, and Access, and he oversees the athletics in the district. So he's worked very hard with all of these teams. For our next presentation, we have our Alternative Certification Program presentation. Dr. Lord, if you would please come to the podium. The ACP course is a very rigorous course that teachers who already have their bachelor's degree but not in education, they can go through this course to become certified educators. At least that's what it was when I was there. It's like going to college again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, school board members, Dr. Moore, thank you very much for having us. We are honored tonight to recognize teachers who have completed the Alternative Certification Program here at the School District of Indian River County. As Ms. Maddox already told you, that this is a program for those that have not gone through a college of education, but they hear the calling and they want to come into the teaching profession. And so we have a program that we offer here that provides a very rigorous program and that they can then go for their licensure. That program includes the coursework, passing certification exams, demonstrating the mastery of the Florida Educator Accomplished Practices, FEAPS, and those are the standards for teachers, and also demonstrating the effectiveness in the classroom. And they do that through video, through observations with administrators, and also with Terry Beckham that I have here with me today. The dedicated teachers that we are honoring today have put in many hours beyond the normal 40-hour work week that we think that teachers have. They don't do that lightly, and they are supported by family members, mentors, and administrators. And we also want to thank all of those that have given their time and time again, and to get them across the line for this. 40% of our new teachers this year in Indian River County were ACP teachers. That means that this program is touching our classrooms in every school within the district. Today, we have 17 that have completed the program, and you can see that we have a smaller number because they have so many other commitments, but we are delighted for those that were able to make it here today, and we will be able to recognize each one of them. Each year, the state reviews the program at each district, and they look for quality markers such as retention rate of teachers. For the 2020-21 school year, we just received notice that our new rating was a 3.5 out of a 4.0, which is the highest the district has ever received for the ACP program. This does not come lightly, and much of that work is due to one of our professional development specialists, Terry Beckham, who will always say it does take a team, and it does, but I know how long she's on the phone with our teachers and with our men, and they're all shaking the head on a Saturday, it doesn't matter what time, but also just being there for them and walking them through step by step to get across the line. So I'm going to turn it over to Terry Beckham, but I cannot say enough about her dedication to those in our ACP program. And again, thank you for all that you have done and the commitment that you have shown to our students here in Indian River County.
So just to keep it real brief, and again, thank you, Dr. Lord, Board, Dr. Moore. It is such an honor to be able to work with this group of teachers. Sincerest honor. And the fact that I get to have deep conversations about what's happening in their classrooms and how to best support them and their students is just priceless. So ladies, and everybody else who hasn't had a chance to come here tonight, know that you're not done. You have just started at the starting line, but you're coming with an advantage. And so at this point, as you move forward, I would encourage you to work with your school-based administrators, work with your coaches, continue to call on me. We are here to support you. So the support does not end just because you have now all of a sudden become a certified teacher, and the fact that we want you to continue to grow and perform to be best by our kids. So again, I'm so proud of you guys. Congratulations. So the following who are here tonight, and I'll come over to you in a second. Maritza Burge, just take a step forward. Jody Dorico, Sarah Kelly Howard, and Shauna Seether.
All right, let's get a great picture. Ladies, look at Brooks.
That's the guy right there.
He's the man. Just, yeah, there you go. Perfect, thank you so much.
Way to go.
Next, I would like to invite Ms. Ginger Bernal up to the podium to tell us a little bit about the ASCA ramp certification that one of our schools received.
This is huge.
Heard a little bit about that.
Good evening to the board and Dr. Moore. I am very honored to be able to introduce this next young lady coming down ASCA, or the American School Counselor Association, sets and defines and determines what best practice is for school counselors. So if you can, I draw your attention to the screen, you can see just some quick facts here. What is RAMP? RAMP is when the American School Counselors Association recognizes individual schools for aligning their program with the criteria of the ASCA National Model, a framework for data-informed school counseling programs. To fully implement a ASCA model shows not only it impacts positively students' academic achievement, but also their whole child well-being. And so I'd like to bring up Ms. Kelly Good and Ms. Jade Norwood. These are administrators from IRA that have received the RAMP designation. Now, as you can see, your RAMP designation is valid for 5 years. In the state of Florida, out of all of the K-12 schools in the state, only 1.8% have received this designation. An additional nugget of information is that in the state of Florida, this application period, IRA is the only school in the state of Florida that received this designation. This is the first for the school district of Indian River County, and we just are so proud of Ms. Laverack. So I'd like to invite Ms. Laverack and her husband, Chris, to come on down. By the way, Ms. Laverack will be honored in Austin, Texas on July 11th to receive this prestigious designation.
I would just like to say that as the principal of Indian River Academy, we are so grateful to Mrs. Laverack and her dedication to our staff and our students. She works passionately every single day for our kids, and it shows, and we're just so grateful.
All right, let's get a group picture. Oh. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. Next, I'd like to invite Ryan Caston to the podium to tell us a little bit about the Indian River County Tax Collector and Kids Tag Art presentation. Oh, and Miss Carol Jean Jordan as well.
Come on.
Also welcoming two of our board members, Ms. Chris Sexton and Commissioner Joe Fletcher. Not here with us this evening, but here in spirit, Carol Johnson, Sheriff Eric Flowers, Clerk of the Court Jeff Barton, and we're just so pleased to have them share in this program with us. It started in 2006 by Joe Tedder over in Polk County, Kids Tag Art. He was the tax collector, and he would go to school meetings, be invited to speak, and he never really knew what to talk to a group of students about. So he created this program, and of course it's the front of a license plate. He had great passion for the art programs and felt there wasn't enough involvement with them. So this goes through the fifth grade art classes, and we provide all the materials, and they come out with these amazing productions that we're now in. Let's see, we've been doing this since 2018. We have 15 counties across Florida that are handling this program. We've raised over $1.6 million that goes directly into the art programs, not the school board, no offense, but it goes directly to the art programs. And we've got 20 schools here in the county, both private, public, and charter, that have participated, and we hope to have everybody next year. This year, we will be giving $10,000 to the art classes here in Indian River County, and just so excited with the program. We hope to expand. Ryan runs the whole Kids Tag Art program for us. It's a huge undertaking for one person, just the paperwork alone. But we also have to give credit to our new vendor. We were working through a Polk County vendor because that's where the whole program started, and it was easier for us to do. But we now have Cool Stuff, who's here in Indian River County, buying local, and she has just gone out of her way to be helpful to us. She literally will print tags on site when we have special events, so it's wonderful. And she not only does tags, Mom and Dad, she does cups, she does key rings, she does all sorts of things with these children's art on it, so it's really amazing. And we're gonna begin the slideshow. This is my clicker. So first place, we have Beachland Elementary with Bethany, Citrus Elementary with Michaela, Fells Mill Elementary with Allison, Glendale with Autumn, Imagine with Olivia,
Look at that artwork.
Indian River Academy Madison, Liberty Magnet Mackenzie, Osceola Magnet Violet, Pelican Island Owen, Rosewood Autumn, Sebastian Elementary, Jakeem. Treasure Coast Elementary, Ariana. Wabasso is Joshua. Now we go to our special, and yes, please.
Come on, what do you think here?
And I will tell you, we do these presentations thanks to the Sheriff's Department. We do drive-bys. And we go with full, when it's not raining, our motorcycle guys go with us. We have Sheriff's Department cars that have the alarms and the whistles going, and we blow our horns, and it's just so exciting. And of course, the parents know, the grandparents know, but the child doesn't know. And they come, the neighbors think they're being raided, but they come out, the kids come out, and it's all over the county, but they come out, and they are so excited. The first one last week was just in tears. She says, it's the first thing I've ever won. And some of these children, we haven't been there yet, so hopefully you all don't tell anybody that they won. But I also have to talk about our special awards. Now, we have amazing artists that judge these awards, and it starts out with Sean Sexton. We have the Evergreen Media team. We have, who else does judging? Michael Jackson.
And then our judges, our major sponsors.
Yes, our major sponsors, and they have their very own awards, and we're going to announce those as we go along, and hopefully we have the schools here, or do we? Number one, Mr. Flesher, we have Imagine. Do we have Imagine School here?
Imagine School's here.
For the art department. Okay, that's all right. We'll deliver. Ryan's going to deliver because
we give away money.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a $500 check that's going to Imagine Art Class. And that's provided through one of our major donors, which is Route 60 Hyundai. We have the Tax Collector Choice Award, my award, and that's $750 to Dodgertown. Is Dodgertown here? Hey, come on over.
We have a winner.
Oh, there she is. There she is. And they also, oftentimes the principals and the art teachers come to the class, come to the presentation with us, and it's just so exciting, especially when it doesn't rain. The children are it, yes. And then our major sponsor is Joseph Sempravivo Real Estate, and that's $1,000 going to Liberty Magnet. Are they here?
I have Glendale. I have Glendale.
That's the last one. She's
Okay.
Make sure you get the right check.
And while we're figuring that out,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Carol Jean,
We're good.
Glendale,
It's
sorry.
good.
On the-
It's good.
on the
It's
intro.
a misprint. Here, we're going to go again. I'll tell that again. That's one of our major sponsor awards, and that's Glendale. I'm so sorry, Elementary. And that's $1,000 for Mr. Flesher.
That goes to her.
Goes to her, yes. And our overall county winner is Fells Mill Elementary, and that's $1,500. Is Fells Mill here? Here she comes. Right, right. And just so you know, Commissioner Fletcher had his own award, which was Imagine South, and we won't mention her name again because she hasn't, we haven't done that one yet.
You can't show it because she hasn't
Well,
seen
we
it yet.
we showed it,
And
but
she
you all
doesn't know
slipped
she
through it,
won.
so, anyway. So, in addition to that, we're giving $300 to each one of the art programs. Every county, every class that participated, we're giving a $300 award to. And I just say thank you to each and every one of you. The teachers just went out of their way to make this happen for the kids. The kids' art is, I would not want to be a judge. The art is just incredible. And see it, we go to Downtown Friday, we go a lot of places and have the artwork displayed. And we sell some of them. And thanks again to Ryan and to our board for all the time that they put into this program. It's wonderful to see these young people and the talent that they have. And maybe one of these days they'll be one of our congressional art winners because we've had a lot of them from this county.
You know,
Yes, it is. We have it in the tax collector's office. So if you're coming to get license renewed or something, come by and buy one of the tags to put on the front of your car.
If all the winners could come back forward for a picture.
Okay.
Carol
If
Jean,
ever-
Shannon Dean, the coach for the lacrosse team,
Mhm.
he said this was the most rewarding year in his 27 years. I had worked with Shannon Dean a long time ago when we were both wearing uniforms. This program is the most rewarding program that I have the opportunity to be involved with, to participate, and I want to thank all the children, the youth, for giving us a gift. It may be nice that we're giving a gift, a monetary gift, back to them, but they not only earned it, they created the gift. And judging this is extremely difficult because we have a lot of gifted students in this program, in this school system, and we are fortunate, you all are fortunate. And one other thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned earlier Jeffrey Barton, Jeffrey Smith.
I'm sorry. I wrote Jeffrey Barton too, bless his heart.
And not in the spirit of correction, but
Please.
in honor, Jeffrey Barton is no longer with us, and Jeffrey Smith is very much a participant of the program.
And took his place as clerk of the
And took
court,
his
and they're
clerk-
both wonderful
so I
humans,
just
and I
wanted
just
for
think of them so
clarification.
much alike, sorry.
No.
So that's all
Yes.
kinds of mistakes today.
No.
But those kids are wonderful again, and thank you all so much for allowing us to do this. It is very important. I know the arts, it's hard to get the funding for the arts, so the little bit that we do, we feel like it's in the right place.
Thanks to the artists.
Yes. Can all our winners, award winners, check winners come up and get a picture, please? Thank you.
I keep seeing this guy. Everywhere I go.
How are you?
We'll take you to dinner.
All right, congratulations. Next, we have some members from the Elks Club here. If you are here and you're not coming to the podium, would you just raise your hand? Let's recognize all of you. Thank you for being here tonight. Our partnership with the Elks in our district is absolutely amazing, and they support us in multiple ways every year. Darlene Short, if you'd please come to the podium and tell us about the Elks Essay Contest.
Jim McFadden, who is our chairperson of the Americanism, is not here tonight, so I'm doing the presentation. Thank you, Kristen, for having us with me this evening from the Elks Lodge 1774 to assist in the presentations Or Paul Diaz, he's our district vice president. Please come to the center. Joe Palowitz, he's our current exalted ruler. Jane Ferguson, she's an officer and next year's chairwoman of the Americanism Committee. She will take Jim's place. And I am Darlene Short. I'm last year's exalted ruler during this contest. This presentation is for the state winners of the annual essay contest. It's sponsored by the Grand Lodge of Elks. It's for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in the U.S. And now to make the presentations that Jim would be doing. These essays are based on Americanism theme. This year's theme was, what does it mean to love your country? Locally, this contest is open to all 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students in the school district of Indian River County. It's divided into 2 divisions. Division 1 is for 5th and 6th graders, and Division 2 is for 7th and 8th graders. The contest is judged at 4 levels. Locally at our lodge, the district, and there are 10 lodges in our district. And the state level, there are 14. The first is Luke McGigan. Is Luke here? Luke, will you please come up? Luke is representing Storm Grove Middle School and Mrs. Sutherland's class and was awarded 2nd place in Division 2. Luke is receiving a certificate and a check in the amount of $750 from the Florida State Elks Association. Congratulations, Luke. Next is Maya Eckerd Harris. Maya, will you please come up? Maya is also representing Storm Grove Middle School and Mrs. Blackwell's class. Maya was awarded 1st place in Division 1 and is receiving from the Florida State Elks Association a certificate, a check in the amount of $1,500, and she and her family will be guests of our Elks at our state convention in Orlando and will be asked to read her essay at the main luncheon on Saturday. Maya is receiving an additional check in the amount of $250 from our lodge for any expenses at the convention. Congratulations, Maya. The Elks would like to thank the Board of Education, the administrators, teachers, students, and especially Kristen for making this contest possible. And based on the number of state winners we've had over the past several years, it is an example of the excellent education our children are receiving from our school district in Indian River County.
Thank you and congratulations. We have 2 Casual for a Cause organizations that we'll be recognizing tonight because we did not get to recognize one at our last meeting. So first, I would like to bring up Lisa Bell, the Executive Director of Indian River County's Boys and Girls Club. And Lisa, our students, teachers, and staff members this month for Casual for a Cause raised $2,325.62 to go to the Boys and Girls Club of Indian River County. You will get real money.
Stand over here.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Beth Turek, who's a board member from Halo No Kill Rescue. Halo was one of our Casual for a Cause organizations, and our district student, teachers, and staff members raised $2,842.45 for Halo. And that concludes our presentations.
Before we end this meeting, we'll take a 10-minute break to begin our next meeting. But before we do, any comments from the board on any of these awards? Anybody?
Congratulations to all. Well done.
At the end of the day, that's why we're all here.
Exactly.
Let's watch these kids succeed. Congratulations to everybody and all their mentors, teachers, parents, and the like. It's great.
And as a former principal and working at the FHSAA, I truly believe that athletics, extracurricular, one of the best dropout prevention programs we have, and I'm just so excited that all of our schools participate, let alone do so very, very well at state. And again, a community partnership that we have, even listed tonight for the Elks, Boys and Girls Club, Halo, the tax collector, the tags are, that is just a wonderful program. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this at 6:21, and we'll begin again at 6:31. Thank you. Everyone, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Joe N. Idelett Junior Teacher Education Center. The time is 6:30. The date is May 23rd. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. And if we could please have a moment of silence for all of the victims and their families in the most recent mass shootings in Brooklyn and Chicago. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, board members, as we begin this meeting, just a note, if it does go over 2 hours, we'll take a break at 10 minutes, or if anyone would like that before then, please let me know. And we will be following board protocols during this meeting. All right, we now go into the adoption of the orders of the day. One note, please, that the superintendent's presentation will be before citizen input, so please note that, board members.
Also, Madam Chair, I would like to pull the outreach specialist job description from item 7A, which is the appointment of personnel. And we'll bring it back after our conversations with our union.
7A by Dr. Moore.
Yep. Just that one specific job description,
Okay.
outreach specialist.
Board members, anyone like to wish to move anything from consent to action?
I'd like to add an item to action. But first I'd like to add, is Mrs. Berenborg with us? I'd like to ask, rather. She's with us? Okay. I'd like to add the LGBTQ plus administrative guide and administrative procedures to action.
Okay, Ms. Rosario, in our protocols, it specifically says items will not be pulled or added unless we are given due notice. We have an obligation to the public that this agenda is published 7 days ahead of time, and board members should do it 8 days ahead of time. A move to action also in policy is giving us the information that unless it's an emergency, we do not move, and we have it at a subsequent item. So this was not on an action item, so adding that is against our protocols and policy.
Our policies trump protocols, and our policies give board members the opportunity and the right to add to action any item. I understand the thing about emergencies, but when things come up that need to be addressed, it is our responsibility to bring it up and to address it the appropriate way. And when we get there, there might not be any action to do, to take. So it would be prudent upon us to be able to follow our protocols, which is tied to statute. I'm sorry, follow our policies, which are tied to statute.
Okay, I'm going to read the policy. No board action shall be taken on request made during public discussion unless the board declares the matter to be an emergency in accordance with current law. Any other request that the board chooses to take action on shall be placed on agenda for a subsequent meeting. We've discussed in protocols quite a bit about having the information that we need to have, making sure our public is aware, making sure that we have all the resources and research. So at this time, I am denying that.
So at this time, I'd like to add to discussion LGBTQ administrative guide and administrative procedures.
Thank you. Any other board member for consent? Pulling from consent to action. Okay. All right, we will add that to discussion. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add to discussion.
Okay.
I'd like
Yes,
to-
sir. What is your discussion item?
I'd like to discuss the effectiveness of our workshops and board meetings going forward.
Okay. We have Ms. Rosario's LGBTQ resource guide and Mr. Barefoot.
Yeah, add to that, and administrative procedures.
Thank you. All right. All righty. Call for a motion to accept the adoption of the orders of the day.
I make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Rosario and Mr. Barefoot. Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, can we get Mrs. Berenborg on the big screen? I think she's on the small one, but she's not up where we can see her or acknowledge if she has a comment.
Yes, that would be great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Now
can hear you. We just can't see you.
There we go, now we
All
can
right,
see.
okay.
Okay, now we can.
No, I'm by phone.
Oh, got it.
Thank you.
Okay. So did she vote?
What was your vote on that, Ms. Berenborg, on the orders of the day?
I said I agreed, yes.
Thank you. 5-0. All right, now we will go into the superintendent's report on presentation, and you wanted to talk a little bit before citizen input.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My presentation will solely focus in on the LGBTQ plus administrative resource guide, so hopefully this addresses Ms. Rosario's desire to speak through it, as well as other board members. So what I would like to do is provide some clarifying statements regarding this guide in order to ensure we all have a deep understanding of the intent and the rationale as it relates to this specific document. First and foremost, this document is secondary as it relates to parental rights. So parental rights is the driving force in this district, and we ensure that we adhere to parental rights. So this is a document that was used for resources for administrators. It's been in the district for quite some time. Matter of fact, Board Member Berenborg brought it to my attention earlier this school year, and there were needed changes and modifications to the form. I asked staff, along with school board attorney, to make these needed changes. And as I look at this specific document, there are still opportunities to enhance and clarify some of the information that is here. At the end of the day, this school district will ensure that no student is discriminated against, that every single student that walks through our school doors feels accepted, feels understood, because that is a prerequisite for learning. And we are in a difficult time. As a school superintendent, it is my obligation in order to provide guidance to principals. They are leading our schools, and they're dependent upon us to provide clarifying information, because they're the ones who are on the front row. They're the ones receiving the information and working through this information on a daily basis. Principals have the opportunity to receive feedback, ask questions. This is an LGBTQ document. So as we provided information to principals, there was an exchange of information on how to help guide their work. Looking at the specific document without the opportunity to exchange, I see clearly there are opportunities in which people can say, this is of concern. This is something that I don't necessarily agree with. So I wanted to go through some of the action steps and some of the information moving forward for us as a system and as a district. If you look at the first one, and I'll talk through it, which is student privacy. And student privacy really is referring to outside organizations and the districts sharing student information. And what I believe is confusing or unclear there is what it says is the district will not share without the student or parent's consent. Students is referring to 18-year-old students. So when you see that, you might assume, okay, well, the district is going to violate parental rights. No, that's not what we do. So this is considering 18-year-old students. That's a correction or update that we can obviously make moving forward. When you look at action step 3, which is names and pronouns, once again, very straightforward. This does not supersede parental rights. Gender-based decisions are personal decisions made between parents, guardians, and students. This is not us making decisions. This is us honoring the request of parents and students after that conversation has taken place. When you look at the restrooms and locker rooms, and I think that is the big one. And let me say, from a father's perspective of 2 daughters, we have a student code of conduct. And students who are male go to the male bathroom, and students who are female go to the female bathroom. And when there is a situation in which a transgender student is feeling as if they are being isolated or they're feeling as if they're being discriminated, that's a case-by-case situation in which we work with families to come up with accommodations. Every single time our schools have been successful, we have bathrooms in all of our secondary schools that have the single point of entry or a standalone bathroom that could be used by a male or female in all of those schools. Our principals have been very, very successful. If a student who is in need of accommodations is a transgender student, that's when we provide and work with the families to create those accommodations. Students who just generically walk into the opposite sex bathroom is going to have to face the code of conduct. There are clearly identified procedures and expectations in our schools, and we want to ensure every single student feels safe and is able to follow those very specific rules. When it comes to the interscholastic athletics, it is very clear what we do, and this is tightening up this specific language as well. A male plays a male sport. A female plays a female sport unless a female wants to participate in a sport that is not offered by in a female sport. As an example, we just recognized a female wrestler. They do not offer wrestling for females. That is in alignment with Florida state statute. That is the work that we do. We need to refine this specific statement. Anything beyond the Florida statute 1006.205 would be a case-by-case scenario where we would work through that. So there are opportunities for us moving forward to be more specific, and I will continue to say this was an internal guide that we use to provide information to principals as they are the ones standing in the classrooms dealing with principals. We will not be a district that allows students to walk into our buildings and feel as if they're being discriminated against. We need to really be intentional around the reality of the world that we live in and providing an educational environment in which all students feel accepted and embraced. So there are opportunities to enhance this guide, so regardless of who the reader is, it doesn't cause a level of reaction that is not the reality in our schools. That is not the reality in our schools. And I'll say that again for the third time. Some of the concerns has not been, nor will never be an issue in our schools because our principals are vigilant in providing the available resources and problem solving with families to come up with accommodations so students do not feel as if they're being discriminated against. So as we penned new guidance that's coming from the state, there will be opportunities to make modifications or changes to this resource guide. There are a number of pending cases right now that are being heard in court, which the outcome of those specific cases may require additional changes or modifications. I think we as a system will conduct a feasibility study around single-use restrooms for both males and females. We think we're in a pretty decent place, but we think we need to do a comprehensive study to inform the board where we are. As changes or modifications are made to this form over the summer and as we prepare for the upcoming school year, I will definitely share those changes or modifications with the board. And I hope this provides a level of clarity, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions board members may have regarding this form. And I also wanted to say, I'm sorry, as we make changes or modifications, we will go through a comprehensive legal review, whether that's internal, external. I am completely wide open to the work that we do, as we need to be transparent in that work.
Okay, this is now part of a discussion item, so do you want some questions now, or do you want to do it later?
I work at the will of the board, so I would appreciate that.
Do it later.
Yeah,
So
I
we
think
don't
so we can
take
move
up the
forward, right?
citizens'
Dr.
input.
Jones? Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Barrenborg would like to speak.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, will we be able to hear that, or?
Yeah, we heard her before.
Okay,
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was my exact question. Are we gonna, I know that this has been put on as a discussion item, but are we gonna discuss it now? Because there are several questions I have, or are we gonna discuss it after hearing from our citizens?
We're going to discuss it at the end with discussion, Ms. Barrenborg.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's move on to guidelines for citizen input, and I will read those. First of all, thank you for being here. Each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. Persons will be recognized in the order in which the requests were received. The time shall start when the speaker is at the podium, and the school board attorney will be the official timekeeper. You will hear a beep at the end of your 3 minutes. Persons may speak up to 3 minutes at the beginning of a business meeting during citizen input as indicated on the order of business, and for up to 3 minutes to each action agenda item during the action agenda, and each board member discussion item as indicated by the order of business. Persons may only speak once about any given item. The time period may be extended by the presiding officer. Only the individual submitting a speaker's form is allowed to address the board. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. During the meeting, please refrain from clapping or outbursts of any sort so that we can proceed with dignity and with decorum by not infringing on any individual's First Amendment rights. I need to remind everyone to direct all comments to the chairperson, not to individual board members or the superintendent. Board members may or may not address any citizen input statements at the end of all of the citizen input comments. As board members listen to citizens without interruption, citizens are asked to give board members the same respect. As per Florida Statute 1001-372, subsection 3, the presiding officer of any district school board may order the removal from a public meeting held by the district school board of any person interfering with the expeditious or orderly process of such meeting, provided such officer has first issued a warning that continued interference with the orderly process of the meeting will result in removal. Speakers shall not engage in personal attacks or abusive language. The chairman has the right to terminate any speaker's privilege to address the board if the rule is violated. And if we do have any handouts, please make sure that Ms. Esplin, our assistant, gets those. And we'll go on with the business of the board with our citizen input. We'll call the first speaker and the one on deck. First, we have Thomas Kenny, and on deck is Lyson Villamontes. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you. My name's Thomas Kenny, taxpayer, Indian River. Past year, I've just watched the school system and started with mask mandates that ended in the school system being one of 12 in the state of Florida to lose grant money because the board wouldn't follow the law. It went on from there to books that are still being held in question. There are more coming, probably. And while the board did vote for them to remain in the library, many of the votes that were cast, including, well, the superintendent didn't vote, everyone said, wouldn't have this in my home. Fast forward to where we are right now with this current policy that should probably be voted on, the LGBTQ plus stuff. But more importantly, the other day online, the president-elect of the PTA is sharing private calendars of a board member and email exchanges regarding something that shouldn't have never gotten out from this school district. Now, the PTA has it in their charter that their officers are not to engage in electoral politics. And so I believe that this board should not engage with that person until that person either stops it or steps down from the PTA and the office that he has. I think that's very important. That's an IRS violation. A 501c3 cannot do that. And so I just want this board to be aware that any further action or, I mean, there was an email there too where the chair was asking about something regarding that issue, and he published that too. And so I look at this and I just say, you know, where is the decorum to follow the law? It's very important. The people come here because they see law being broken and their sensibilities being violated as a result. The law is the people's voice. Their elected officials are sent to Tallahassee and here to do their bidding, and then their bidding's ignored? It doesn't make sense to me. And so I would just ask that this be taken care of quickly. This should never have happened. It's policy that only work product can be published, not private product. And so I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. All right. Ms. Viamontes, and then on deck we have Rosemary Wilson.
Hello. Okay, so I'm here to talk about a bullying incident. I sent Ms. Griffin an email on April 2nd that was forwarded to all of you on May 20th regarding my daughter being kicked out of school. This was a result of her being bullied and stalked by her ex-boyfriend. It included information with the police report we filed against him. Since then, I received a voicemail from Mr. Sean O'Keefe stating that the decision to send her to Alternative Center for Education was the district's decision. So I'm here to ask, is it customary for the district to punish a student who's in gifted, makes honor roll, and is bullied rather than the student who was the bully? Is this what you were voted on the board to do? When can I expect to receive a response to my email regarding the situation from each of you, explaining the reason for punishing the victim rather than actually looking into the matter of the death? She was bullied, harassed, and we reached out for help and for answers and got nowhere. She got accused of disrupting the learning environment, even though she didn't post anything, her ex-boyfriend did, and that's why we reached out for help in the first place. And she's not a bad kid, so I'm just asking for some kind of justice or someone to get back to us on how we can resolve this matter, because I don't feel it's fair to send my child to Alternative Center after suspending her for 10 days of school because he posted a video online that wasn't taken at school, it wasn't on campus, and it had a racial slur in it, and she already got in trouble for that at home, but it was not ever meant to get posted out there, and he hacked into her phone, he blasted it, and got everybody set up to jump her at school, so we reached out for help, and I've gotten nowhere besides my daughter's been out of school since March because I'm not okay with sending her to Alternative. So if you guys could please look into it, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Get back with me.
I'll have Ms. Dampier speak with you. Ms.
Pardon?
Dampier, Pam Dampier.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wilson, and on deck, we have Mr. George Colin, I believe it is, Colin. Ms. Wilson?
Good evening. I'm Rosemary B. Wilson. I live at 1490 Fifth Avenue in Vero Beach. I just want to say, shame on the board, shame on the board. This is an armed camp that you need 7 sheriff's deputies here. Are you afraid of the parents? Our governor stood up for our constitutional rights. Our governor banned critical race theory. I want to recap what has occurred here in the last year. To start with, it's your job to enforce state standards, and you have failed miserably. You have bullied us taxpayers, parents, and grandparents. You have denied us our right to free speech. You have violated Florida law by opposing the governor's mask mandate. You have permitted social emotional learning propaganda. You have permitted critical race theory. You have permitted obscene pornographic garbage in the books our children and grandchildren read, thereby corrupting their moral values. And now another atrocity, the LGBT guideline. When will you stop? Well, I'll tell you when you'll stop, August 23rd, in the primary. Unfortunately, we're going to have to live with Brian Barefoot and Peggy Jones. Brian Barefoot, you may have Johns Island buffaloed, but not all of us. Some of us still have values and principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Mr. George Colon, I believe it is. Thank you. And on deck, we have Jennifer Freeland.
It's Cologne.
I'm sorry, George Colon, I'm sorry.
No worries. My name is George Cologne. I'm an addiction specialist, interventionist, sober companion, and I'm educated in the mental health field. continuing education since 2013. I travel all over the country. I don't promote what I don't know, and I'm certainly not going to make decisions on children, on what their well-being is. I follow HIPAA laws, which is what we do in the private sector. I'm not very familiar with this whole forum. I'm new to this. Being educated very well. What I want to plead is the interest of the children. That's the most important thing. You know, some people get paid to be on the board, some seem to be bored with this particular duty that they have. It's very obvious. I study behavior, right? If you don't want to do your job, then, you know, give it up to somebody. Let someone be proactive for the interest of the child. I've been in Veros 40 years, and I've never seen anything other than this nonsense. That would not have happened, if my children were going to school. Thank God they graduated. This is unacceptable. I don't know who created this. Somebody's got to look at themselves inside. Really? This is what we've become in Indian River County? I'd like to find out who the author or who promoted this, because I tell you what, my good friend DeSantos would not allow this. Not only DeSantos, Posey, Mayfield, other elected officials that have integrity and dignity. How do I know them? They're going to be attending our first Fentanyl Awareness Coalition event, June 23rd in Lake Worth, about trying to bring advocacy and education about what's happening in our schools. If people are ill-informed, just like I can be ill-informed about some things, I don't have the right to misrepresent the issue. I don't. We're talking about the school system. It's been decayed. 1.2 million kids no longer go to school in this great nation since COVID. Why? Why? Is it the teachers? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a teacher. I'm a professional in another arena. Right? One thing I do know, they don't get paid enough, and I'll go with you on that extent. I think teachers, nurses, and law enforcement, those who serve, don't get paid enough. But then there's an accountability, the interest of what we do, the dignity, the pride. Has that been decayed? I don't know. It's the first time I'm hearing all this thing. I've never seen this in all my years, ever. And I'll tell you, I'm going to talk to my good buddy DeSantos about this, as we hope he attends our thing. He would be appalled. It saddens me what's happening in this great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, I have Jennifer Freeland on deck, Josh Boyd. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening to the chair, Dr. Moore. Though there are many issues that are still in need of resolution and much work to be done, all of which I could speak on tonight, I believe I will let it hold another night, and I would rather use my time to thank all of our teachers. You survived and even thrived in what has been undeniably one of the most difficult school years ever. So thank you all. May your check-out list be short and your summer be super long.
Thank you, Ms. Freeland. Okay, Josh Boyd, and our next speaker, Julia White. Thank you.
Thank you guys for the attention and the opportunity. My name is Josh Boyd, and I'm a parent of a third grader, a first grader, and soon to be a kindergartner at Beachland Elementary School. And I'm here tonight to criticize the lack of action of the Beachland administration when it comes to the safety of our children at the school. There is been a pattern of disturbing behavior exhibited by a third grader in that elementary school. And I just exited a meeting through going through the process since January, where there has been death threats, horrific drawings drawn by this child towards my children, other children in the school, and I'm very concerned with how it's been handled. And I was just in a meeting Friday afternoon where Mr. Seymour attended, and still, after what has now been almost 6 months, and had to be prompted by my wife in the recent, false alarm of a shooter on campus there 2 weeks ago. After that incident, my wife had to, for a second and third and fourth time, reach out to Principal Finnegan to try to get some information about the process that has been taking place with this individual who since January has continued to exhibit this behavior towards other students. And my concern and my reason for being here tonight and bringing this to the board is that I don't believe there's other parents in the school. I don't believe that all the parents in the school understand what this particular individual has been doing. My children don't feel safe there, and as a taxpayer of this county and of that school district, I am disappointed with the administration at Beachland Elementary, and I ask that in light of the last 2 decades that myself and all of us in this room have witnessed the horror and tragedy inflicted on some of our schools by individuals in this country, that in the aftermath, we all get to see that through policies and procedures, we watch leaders and individuals in authority hide behind these policies and procedures and do nothing. A lack of action is what's led to some of these, particularly even in the state of Florida, as we know of these tragedies, that I'm just shocked that we still haven't come further from seeing this, identifying a pattern of behavior that is severe and doing nothing about it. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Seymour, could you?
Okay, next we have Julia White and then Kathy Stenson.
Hi, good evening. Julia White, Indian River County Council of Parent-Teacher Association. We oversee the guidance and training of 16 local active units in Indian River County. I just wanted to give you some positive feedback and some numbers through this year. We have almost 1,700 members, which is down from prior years, about 2,500 pre-COVID. For the last school year, 2020-2021, they brought in over $350,000 in income for this county, all of which goes right back to our schools. There's no paid employees, including myself. Nearly 90% of all of our members are working families. So when you think about that, everybody that's coming to the table is also working a full-time job. I'm going to give you some statistics in another hat that I wear, which is the booster president for Vero Beach High School Band. I recently crunched numbers for Mr. Howell, and we pulled in 3,100 hours of scheduled volunteer time. That was 99 volunteers, 3,100 hours. Try to think about what you would put a dollar amount on. And that was just what was worked on scheduled hours. If you added in what was put in for, administration time for the boosters, it was probably close to 3,500 hours. Volunteers dedicate their time, and it could be coaches or little leagues or baseball teams and football boosters and band boosters and PTAs. And I just wanted to take a minute to give them thanks, something that this county has done in the past formally, but wasn't happening the last couple of years due to COVID. Thank you for giving the one thing that you can't give back, which is your time. Thank you for all of the dry cleaning and the equipment moving and the planning and the dances and the thank yous to our teachers during Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. We couldn't do it without you. Additionally, I would like to thank the School District of Indian River County for creating the Parent Engagement Advocacy Council under Dr. Cowie. We've been doing a lot of great work. I really hope that that council continues because we are just beginning. And we look forward to continuing that work next year. In regards to what was said by a previous person, my predecessor will be taking office on June 1st, and any, things that might come up will be reviewed by the Florida PTA Ethics Committee. The elections are open for all members, and he ran unopposed. So if you ever would like to come to our meetings and join in the conversation, you are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you. Kathy Stenson, and then we have on deck Catherine Carr Max.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Noted poet Maya Angelou wrote, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." Approximately 10% of the people in general are left-handed. Up until the late 18th or 19th centuries, being left-handed was unacceptable and even illegal. Students were punished and often had their left hands tied behind their backs to force them to be right-handed. That view and those actions seem bizarre today. We know better, so we do better. Slavery was once considered acceptable by many, including some of our founding fathers. We know better, so we do better. Women were considered unqualified to vote until 1920, and that was white women. Black women weren't fully enfranchised until 1965. We know better, so we do better. Interracial marriage was illegal in many states until just a few decades ago. My late brother wouldn't have been free to marry his wife and build their beautiful family. We know better, so we do better. These are a few examples of how, as a country, we've evolved and grown. There's still a lot of opportunity for learning and growing as a community and as a nation. We're here today to discuss how we can know better and do better for our LGBTQ+ students. LGBTQ+ people have always been with us. History tells us this. In this country, Native Americans referenced transgender people as two-spirit, and at the time of contact with Europeans, they recognized 5 genders. I've known several members of the LGBTQ+ community, including members of my own family, who have contemplated or committed self-harm because they felt hopeless about being accepted by their families or about living a, quote, normal life. Statistically, LGBTQ teens and young adults are at a much higher risk of self-harm and suicide. We can do better. When we meet people where they are, when we offer understanding, support, and dignity instead of ignorance and judgment, we do better. The guide that's being discussed helps to educate faculty and administration about expectations regarding respectful treatment and providing an appropriate learning environment for our LGBTQ+ students and for families that include members of the community. That's what every student deserves and is entitled to in this country. We know better. The existence of this guide shows that. The impetus now must be on improving its content and execution, not on eliminating it and pretending that these students and their issues aren't valid and real. We must not move backwards. We must work instead to do better because we know better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Catherine Carr Max, and after that we had Reverend Dr. John Vacciano.
My name is Catherine Carmax. I am a Sebastian River High School graduate, a mother of 2, and a local business owner. I just wanted to come out tonight and show my support to our hardworking school district and all of its members. Thank you for tirelessly standing up for our children and acknowledging the real-world problems and issues that are happening right here in our hometowns. It's been a great school year despite everything you guys have gone through, including the mask issue. I'm proud to live in Indian River County and have a board that will go against what our governor says in the safety and the best interest of our children. It has been a great year. I have recently seen the LGBTQ+ guide revision, and I am incredibly inspired by the steps the district continues to take to provide a safe, supportive environment for all. They are small steps, but I am empowered to show you guys support. I know this all comes with a big fight, but it is so reassuring to know the resources being made available to these kids are here for a reason. And I am thankful my children do go to school in Indian River County. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. John? And on deck we have Melissa Kells-Burdick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you pray with me? Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessings upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our country. Amen. There's a reason why we are in difficult times. Our American education system, a pendulum, if you will, has moved so far away from its original intent. Some of those reasons are folks named, just for instance, John Dewey, the architect of modern progressive education, who said there is no God and there is no soul, hence there are no needs for the props of traditional religion. Unfortunately, this philosophical shift took place in America, and the biblical principles for education were slowly eroded and abandoned, and with sad and tragic consequences that continue to unfold. Those props have been knocked away, and the loss of moral standards has opened the door to untold numbers of unwanted teen pregnancies, abortions, drug abuse, alcoholism, violence, and suicide. Let me bring us back to the original intent. Let's look at the big three. How about Harvard? Harvard University. Truth for Christ and the Church was their original motto in 1636. Their philosophy was this: let every student be plainly instructed and earnestly pressed to consider well the main end of his life and studies is to know God in Jesus Christ, which is eternal life, and therefore lay Christ at the bottom as the only foundation of all sound knowledge and learning. How about Yale University? Light and truth. Their philosophy was to plant and to under ye divine blessings to propagate in this wilderness the blessed Reformed Protestant religion and ye purity of its order and worship. The requirement for its students was this: all scholars shall live religious, godly, and blameless lives according to the rules of God's word, diligently reading the Holy Scriptures, the fountain of light and truth, and constantly attend upon all the duties of religion, both in public and secret. Seeing God as the giver of all wisdom, every scholar, besides private prayer and secret prayer, where all are to be bound to ask wisdom, shall be present morning and evening at public prayer in the hall at the accustomed hour. Their primary goal, they said, was every student shall consider the main end of his life to know God in Christ Jesus, and answerably to lead a godly and sober life. Same for Princeton. Under God's power, she flourishes. Their philosophy was this: cursed be all learning that is contrary to the cross of Christ. That was from their first president, Reverend Jonathan Dickinson. We can do better, and we will transform education. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Burdick, and then we have John Karapi.
Good evening. I guess I'm moving from God to Camille Paglia, which I don't think that's ever been uttered in the same sentence. Feminist activist Camille Paglia is notorious for marching to her own beat. Paglia herself claims the label of transgender. The courageous thing about Paglia is that she refuses to treat the ever-growing, in my own words, alphabet soup education fetish, known today as the LGBTQ+, as a badge of victimhood, as a cause for special treatment. She points out the problems that these ever-growing identities bring to a community. This clinical term has been wrongly appropriated, according to Paglia, and distorted by political ideologues who have injected it with crusading moralism, which has little to do with morals and everything to do with politics. So, have the adults gone mad? I think so, including myself. Children are now being callously used for medical experiments with unknown long-term results, as well as pawns for play. Regarding the issues of toilets and locker rooms, if private unisex facilities are available, that's a common sense and humane thing to do, and I applaud you. I oppose, however, all intrusion by government into the realm of language. The same principle applies to preferred pronouns. They are a courtesy that I choose to defer to, but no authority has the right to compel their usage. I reject state-sponsored coercion of words. In what Paglia describes as a symptom of decadence and cultural collapse, history cyclic. Spend some time reading Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, and you will know that this is not history's first fetish rodeo. The alphabet soup education fetish movement, or the resource guide, hinders human rights, and why would any ethical society perform psychological games and encourage medical experiments on kids? Follow the money, $100 million. It ignores biology. Sex change is literally impossible. Every cell of our bodies, except for the blood, remains coded with our birth gender for life. You are not assigned a sex at birth. This is a lie, and I will say it till my last breath. Alphabet soup education fetishism leads people to react rather than reason. It is ironic how educators who posture as defenders of science flee all reference of biology when it comes to gender. Biology is not bigoted. Everyone should be free from harassment and abuse, but at the same time, no one deserves special rights, protections, or privileges based on their eccentricities. There are a lot of lies being propagated in our schools, on our youth, and on our families. Parents and grandparents and caregivers, you need to reject the alphabet soup education fetish narrative. Talk with your child. You don't need the government nor the school board to raise your child, and that's truth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Crappie, and then we have Ryan Blade.
All right, TGI now. How's everybody doing? I wasn't going to speak, but a lot of compelling points being made over the past year. You got different pockets of people. You got Josh back here having an issue with his school, and we have a district representative that should be in contact with him on what's going on. We have a lady that has a child that's being bullied, and we're working on a mitigation strategy to fix the bullying. And thanks to Dr. Moore and Mr. Bass, got Milo back there as well. We got together and we're speaking about this. Ryan Blade was in the meeting as well. Same with Mr. Seymour. So these are things that we're talking about. So we have bullying issues. We got Josh having issues, and nobody's communicating and talking. And that's why I'm engaged in these meetings with Dr. Moore and the rest of the board and whoever board member wants to come to these meetings. Because this is what needs to be done, because the mental health, you got George here, he's an expert. He should be a part of your task force, not bringing in MSWs that are going to send kids to doctors to get prescribed medication. That's not fixing the problem in the beginning. That's the aftermath. That's the healing that we have to be doing. And George is a guy that can do that. You got people in this community that can do this. You got people that are speaking about this stuff. They're telling you what was happening all this year. I know it was a tough year, but they were telling you mental health, bullying, issues with the parents, things that are happening, fighting, everything. God forbid something really, 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 really bad happens in one of these schools, in one of these bathrooms, whatever's going on, it's not going to be pretty. And a lot of people are going to be very, very upset because we're letting you know that this is how we feel. We, the people in this community, this is how we feel, that this is what's boiling up. And every time something goes away with the books, we got this LGBTQ thing happening, and then here we go. It comes again. It's not going to go away, guys. You can't ignore it. I call board members, I look for response from them. Some of them don't want to call me back because they don't want to talk about it. Why? You're up there to do a job. You're supposed to be engaged with the parents. Don't ignore them. Turn your phone on. Answer the phone. Listen to what we have to say. This time last year, I got fired for speaking like this. But I'm not going to stop doing it. We have to speak our truth and tell you how we feel. Does that make sense? Because you're having a lot of examples in this room, a lot of all the different things that we've been talking about. And now it's coming to a head. The storm's coming, and we have to be prepared for it. And we have to take care of these children. The mental health is getting bad. This is what's happening. And we're not going to fix it by prescribing medication, sending them to doctors so they can talk about how they feel. Social emotional learning doesn't work. Doesn't work. All right? We really want to make sure we address this. And I appreciate you willing to meet and talk about this stuff, but we need to bring more people into the mix.
Thank
All right?
you, Mr. Crappie. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ryan Blade, and then Patrick. Sorry, I can't read the end of it. Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
My name is Ryan Blade. I'm the owner of Indian River News, one of the news outlets here in the county. I'd like to thank, through the chair, Dr. Moore for addressing the concerns tonight of the LGBTQ+ policy. As I said on my editorial I published Sunday night on Indian River News, I gave Dr. Moore the room to address the issues with this, and I see that process has started, and I want to say thank you very much for doing that. I always like to give people the room to do better, because I know a lot of people can, and they will. I do have full confidence that this will be addressed in a manner that will be beneficial for the whole community, and I'm sure no one will get discriminated in this, and that all students will be safe with the revisions made to this policy. However, I also would like to thank the district for what they've been doing to address the disciplinary issues. I think that's a really good step in the right direction. However, as you've heard here tonight, there are some bullying things going on. I've heard through the grapevine, bumping into educators here in the county, that there's still some issues with discipline not being that well controlled in the classrooms. That's actually putting some stress on some of the educators we got here in the district. And I'd like to make sure that these educators have the tools they need to fix these issues, but also too that we always keep the parents at the center of this. So this way, they can be given the educators given the tools they need to resolve the issues in the classroom, but the parents can be involved to where there's something they need to do on their part to help handle the disciplinary issues that their students may have. I definitely think that the parents should definitely step and get involved, and that the district has the parents involved to make sure that these problems are dealt with accordingly. So yes, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. And I do want to mention one of my medical experiences. I think it was when I was at the end of kindergarten, so it's the mid-2000s. And for whichever reason in Connecticut, they were wanting to drug everybody out the wazoo. Why, it beats me. But I remember being on Statera towards the end of my time in kindergarten, and I did not like being on that drug. I just did not feel right being on that. So I find drugs like that. I've also previously used Lexapro, sadly, as an adult a couple years back. And it's not, you really want to avoid putting adults, children, on those kinds of medications. I've even had withdrawal from Valium from post-operative from a spinal surgery, and it was not fun. It literally felt like my head was getting clamped, withdrawing off Valium. So with these medications, you really want to be careful with that, and it's the less meds you can put someone on. I've also taken Accutane, which is the worst acne drug you can take on the market. It has horrible side effects. And the less drugs you can put someone on, the better, but if they need to take something, they got to take it. But the less of these harmful drugs you can have people on, the better. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Next person is Patrick. I cannot say it. I'm sorry. And we have Cindy Gibbs on deck. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. 1 minute, please. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Jaren Fauché. I'm here today as a concerned parent for the safety of our children in the public school system. My children are in 3rd grade and kindergarten at Beachland Elementary. Due to events that occurred to my children as well as fellow classmates, it has become apparent to us that there is a violent and threatening individual at our school. Despite documented proof of violence and death threats, this individual has been allowed to continue to walk amongst the classmates he has demonstrated these threats against. This is of obvious and great concern, as we know that we are a nation battling violence in our school system. As advocates for our children, we are very disturbed with the handling of this situation. The school has stated that they are following policy and procedure and have currently exhausted their disciplinary actions on such an individual, that ongoing assessments continue, yet this individual remains at Beachland Elementary. If our policies and procedures are designed to protect our children and maintain a safe environment, it is my strong opinion that the current policy and procedure is broken. It appears that we are protecting one individual while potentially sacrificing the safety of hundreds of others. As a seasoned ICU nurse and critical care educator, I understand that policies and procedures are designed to guide our processes, and this is strongly true. That is, until we find that the well-being of our patient is not supported by the current policy. And it is at that time that we advocate for a policy change and, if needed, temporarily create clauses or exceptions to meet the needs of our patients. It is in my opinion that a policy procedure that allows an individual to remain in the same environment where this individual has made physical attacks and death threats is a broken one. Someone should have the strength to stop and advocate for those individuals whose safety is now at risk. I will be that person. We, the parents of the attacked individuals, will be those that demand the change. We are here today to ask that the current policy and procedures are thoroughly evaluated and challenged in regards to not only our current situation at Beachland Elementary, but the well-known violent situations that have happened around the nation, often due to a failure that is discovered post-incident. Not just for this individual and situation, but for any individual or situation that may replicate similar issues in the future. I am here today to offer our community a gift. please hear me. This is a gift of awareness. Awareness that there is a failure in our system. Awareness that violence and threats in our Florida system are still being mishandled.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Next, we have Cindy Gibbs and then Maureen Weisberg.
Congratulations to all of our graduates and all of our students who have achieved success, whatever success looks like to them. The success happens because of the students and the parents and the families and the teachers and the staff and the community all working invested as one in our success. We can't be successful with just one entity highlighted or honored. It can't just be the year of the parent. It has to be the year of the family, whatever that family looks like. Our community is a lot like a family. You don't have to like what everybody says or what everybody does, but it only works when you communicate clearly with each other and you do your best to understand. And that's the beauty of public education. The public, all of the public, helps, accepts, honors, and teaches our future, our children, with honesty, openness, and facts. We have to focus on student achievement. We have to focus on keeping our teachers. We go down the agenda for tonight, we find out we just lost 15 more. And I don't know who's coming to fill those spaces. We need to have laser-like focus on student achievement. Any good educator will tell you that no one learns when they feel uncared for, unsafe, unimportant. And it's the role of the entire community to support our students. We don't get to judge the families. Instead, we see what they bring to the schools, and then we work with that. I've been a proud member of the Parent Engagement Advisory Council this year and the PTSA at Storm Grove, and nobody comes. There are very few parents attending the Parent Engagement Advisory Council and the Parent Teacher Student Association. I know that there's 2 schools that don't have PTAs right now. So we can't say that parents are involved if parents aren't involved. So we need to find a way to engage parents to want to come and family members to want to come to our schools to be that community support for all of our students, no matter what the family looks like, no matter who, if it's a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or the friend, whoever is the legal guardian or the lucky person to be with those children. I fully understand the concern that a lot of our parents tonight have talked about with violence. I'm seeing it through the eyes of my children when they come home and speak about it. I'm lucky they're not involved in it, but I hear about it and I've seen the videos. I agree 100% that we need to focus really hard on keeping kids safe and comfortable so that they can, in fact, achieve the best that they possibly can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Maureen Weisberg, followed by Dawn Wilkerson.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Weisberg, president of the CWA Local 3180. This evening, we would like to share our concerns regarding the present cost of the economy. Next year, the CWA can reopen bargaining if the CPA goes above 5% for the Clearwater Tampa area, triggering a reopener for the 1.25 wage increases. Today, the CPI Consumer Price Index, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, rose sharply over a bi-monthly to 14.6. The CPI advanced 10.2% for the 12 months ending in March. The Energy and Food Index also increased over the last 12 months, up to 31.10%. The CWA wage increase this year is 2%. With the increase of a 31.1%, it is a catastrophe. The CWA is asking for an early reopener for our members for financial help that will greatly help them in the upcoming year. On behalf of the CWA, we wish everyone a healthy and happy summer vacation.
Thank you, Maureen. Dawn Wilkerson, followed by Paul Westcott.
Good evening. My name is Dawn. I'm a homeschooling mama of two beautiful children, ages 8 and 7. My advice to friends when they ask me, should I homeschool, is yes. Your children, in my opinion, are not safe in government schools anymore and haven't been for a while, unfortunately. Over the past few years, I hear more about children being bullied, fights breaking out more often that are requiring police involvement, illegal mandates, and more illegal activity involving sexually explicit and pornographic books in school libraries, just to name a few. And now there's an active document, the LGBTQ+ Administrator Resource Guide. This guide somehow flew under the radar, and parents knew nothing about it. This violates the parental rights law. This isn't what our children should be learning, but it's all about programming and not education. This is about an agenda to reprogram our kids to believe a lie. And it breaks my heart, I know that you say that there's going to be changes made to this, but to think about girls having to worry about boys coming into the bathroom and locker rooms and vice versa. An 18-year-old senior boy could potentially be using the bathroom or showering with a 13-year-old girl. Let that sink in. That's unacceptable. It's horrible and it's unsafe. Children, like I said before, I do not believe are safe in school anymore. Action 5 on the Administrator Guide says that all eligible students should have the opportunity to participate in interscholastic athletics in a manner consistent with their gender identity and expression. No, this is wrong. We've already seen the unfairness of this. Guys identifying as women and crushing girls in their sports, girls playing girl sports, and boys playing boy sports, period. What's next? Letting our kids identify as animals and placing kitty litter boxes for them to use? Children need safe boundaries and a good moral compass. Otherwise, where do you draw the line? Without a biblical moral compass, who determines what is right and what is wrong? Our superintendent and some of the board members have gone too far and have lost decency in making poor decisions when it comes to our children. Action 8 says all faculty, staff, and students should feel empowered to be open about their sexual orientation, their gender identity, and their gender expression at school. No, I say keep sexuality out of school. If you're talking about this to any student, it's called perversion, grooming, and you should be arrested. I like the quote from Yvette Carter that says, conformity is doing what everybody else is doing, regardless of what is right. Morality is doing what is right, regardless of what everybody else is doing. I also love in the Bible where it says 1 Corinthians 6:12, all things are permissible, but not all things are good.
Thank you. Mr. Westcott, and then Kimberly Westcott.
The fact of the matter is, this is not a guide. It's not a procedure. This is a policy. This is a stretching of policy far beyond anything that exists in our materials. And you all need to know that and own it. Conflict is good. Most of the conflict has been this way. It probably needs to be this way in a constructive way. I think that clarity in terms of where policy ends, procedure begins, is critical to this analysis. I recommend that this be held in abeyance until you all have decided what the policy is actually going to be on this topic. And then we can undertake developing a procedure that can generate a guide. Policy begets procedure, begets the instructional guidance material. And unfortunately, we're backwards right now. And you all have the unfortunate task of working through your relationship so that you can restore order. This is chaos. This is chaos. We do not perform well in chaos. So an orderly process would invite a constructive discussion on what is obligated, what is necessary. The Biden administration has to use an obscure case in order to state its position. They use a Title VII case rather than a Title IX case. We're in Title IX territory. This is yet to be determined. I strongly recommend that you engage the assistance of the Attorney General. I believe it's Florida Statute Chapter 16 that allows you to seek opinion letters from the Attorney General. That would be wisdom. That would be clarity. That would be the absence of chaos. That would neutralize struggle. Okay? Since I've been watching the education industry, and it's an industry, it is an industry that has been used to alter the course of our culture. And there are influences in play that are embedded in Neola, the service that you use to generate procedural and policy rules. It's there. You got to recognize it and know it's there. There's a view that's there. Our law firm, as I understand, has a relationship. I don't know if they're, I've heard from 2 board members that they represent Neola. That is something that you all need to explore. Does that alter their view of interpretation of policy and procedure? Perhaps outside counsel is appropriate. So take this seriously, own your responsibility.
Thank you,
on
Mr. Westcott.
policy.
Kimberly Westcott, followed by Lynn Shepard.
Good evening. Having taught in the classroom in both public and private school, along with other work in the education industry, I was very concerned when I read the LGBTQ+ Administrator's Resource Guide. Let me clearly state, every student coming to school should be treated with dignity, and school should be a safe place for every student. This resource guide is a nightmare. It puts teachers and coaches in impossible positions. It defines gender expression as external appearance of one's gender identity, usually expressed through behavior, clothing, hairstyle, grooming, or voice, which may or may not conform to socially defined behaviors and characteristics typically associated with being either masculine or feminine. And it defines gender identity as one's innermost concept of self as male, female, a blend of both, or neither. How individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. One's gender identity can be the same or different from their sex assigned at birth. So let's see how this policy implements those terms. In Action 2, student privacy, gender identity, and gender expression are listed separately, while in Action 3 refers to self-expressed gender identity, an undefined term. Then in Action 4, restrooms and locker rooms, where the main difficulties will arise for teachers and coaches, they are instructed to operate in a manner consistent with a student's gender identity, which again is defined as their innermost concept of self. As a teacher or coach, I'm now in the position of affirming or denying someone's innermost concept of themselves. Let's say that concept is questioning. Do I let the student go back and forth each day? What if the concept is neither? How do I handle that? What considerations are made for the far larger portion of the student body who feel uncomfortable with someone of the opposite biological gender in their bathroom or locker room? Is there consideration of their privacy? What about the many students who feel uncomfortable in their bodies apart from gender expression? As a teacher and coach, you put me in the place of having to determine on a daily basis what a student's innermost concept of themselves is, and accommodating that, which by your own definition may be changed as they are questioning. Who will stand behind me if I make a mistake? And what are the very damaging costs to a student for that mistake? Further, this policy is a gift for those who would want to manipulate the system. Let the LGBTQ students and teachers and coaches helping them navigate these transitional years need guidance that doesn't conflate terms and make confusing situations worse. This policy is unwieldy, poorly written. It should never have been distributed in such a shoddy fashion.
Thank you, Ms. Westcott.
And students, teachers, and parents deserve much better.
Thank you, Ms. Westcott.
Please consider
Lynn
the
Shepard
issues
comes
as
up
you
next.
rewrite this.
Thank you, Lynn Shepard.
My name is Lynn Shepard. I'm a parent of a kindergarten student in the district and a pre-kindergarten upcoming student as well. I speak tonight in support of non-discrimination policies. I think it's an important part of our fabric to have in this community. However, at the same time, in opposition to any type of sweeping policy that's written to cater to the least common denominator of our student body at the expense of the majority. This document that we're discussing tonight is what I call social engineering. It's what I call propaganda piece. Clearly, it's a hot topic. Clearly, it's controversial. I would like to know, how does something like this get released as a policy, or you might want to call it a resource guide, whatever, it's semantics. How does something like this get released and one of our school board members isn't even aware of it? How does that happen? You would think there'd be a vote on a policy as groundbreaking as this. There'd be at least discussion if there's not a vote. So that's the number one question I'd like to be followed up with after this evening. Secondly, I'd like to point out that I think we all took the bait, because this was released, convenient timing, and it's dominated our discussion tonight. It's 1 or 2% of our population that spend 1 or 2% of their time in the bathroom. But it's taken 80% of this room tonight's conversation. We haven't talked about education, very little. We haven't talked about substantive policies. So we're all guilty at taking this bait. We should have ignored it, taking it up maybe at another time. I'd like to point out two things, I think one of which has already been mentioned. Action item number 3, refer to all students by their gender pronoun that is consistent with their self-identified gender identity. This isn't age specific. My kids are in kindergarten and pre-kindergarten. Half the time they think they're unicorns and superheroes. And somehow they're supposed to be able to differentiate this. If my son, who spends almost all of his time with girls, between his sisters, my mother-in-law, his cousins, he runs around thinking sometimes he's doing things he shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't say shouldn't be doing, but he plays with girls 90% of the time. I've caught him in a dress. I've caught him running around dancing, doing ballet. It's a phase. I'm not bothered by it. I don't need the teacher to start coming to conclusions before me and start putting things in his mind. I'm going to let him live through that phase. Lastly, all faculty, staff, and students should feel empowered to be open about their sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression at school. The at school part is the part that bothers me. Has nothing to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Pippin, and then Tony Brown.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Pippin. I'm the chairman for Moms for Liberty Indian River, Florida, and the co-founder for We the People of Indian River County. The LGBTQ Administrator Resource Guide has brought light to significant governance concerns as well as public policy and input issues. There has been no public discussion of the issues addressed in the guide. It has not been a product of work during discussion during the superintendent workshop or board meetings. It hasn't been an item or on a board meeting agenda. I suspect the guide is a product of Equality Florida, aggressive staff together with the board attorney, seeking to stretch out an applicable policy and procedural rules provided by Neola into a completely new policy initiative for the board. I hope you have been caught off guard, like the rest of us were, by a public records request. Under the circumstances, I think it's necessary and appropriate that each of you address your view of the new initiative. Before I move on, I want to clearly state we want our district to provide a safe environment for all students and teachers. We want self-respect and respect for others to be a cornerstone of your programs. However, those goals can't be met without the invasive, expansive, appropriate policy initiative. Only 12 of the 67 counties have this policy, and you can find that on the Equality Florida website. Public input and clear objective understanding of the legal implications of this pursuit must be obtained. Unfortunately, the school board attorney has already assisted in the preparation of a biased and result-oriented opinion memorandum. I doubt you can rely on any further input from the board council to be objective and free from lobbying on this topic. I'd like to remind the board that our public input has been successful and beneficial this year, more so than the media or district staff wants to admit. If there was better consideration of public input given on the topic of mask mandates and COVID-19 protocols, we wouldn't be struggling as bad as we are now with mental illness. We told you years ago. Additionally, our district would have had $1.3 million grant. We missed out on breaking the law last year for the masking mandate. The public input on the ELA last year gave us Amplify curriculum over HMH, and we've heard nothing but positive reports on this. The public input and the effects of the public made this happen. We learned that the effort was part to make this better, and we are not domestic terrorists for wanting best for our children. If the board would like to do the right thing, you need to have citizen input. You need to do this right, and parents and board members shouldn't have to find from public records requests.
Thank you, Ms. Pippin. Mr. Tony Brown? Good evening.
Good evening. Anthony Brown, Indian River County NAACP President, Florida State Conference NAACP Third Vice President. Initially, my intent was to air our dirty laundry, but I'm going to follow protocol. I reached out on an emergency basis to Dr. Moore to meet. The meeting was set up, but it was not done the way we felt it. But our concerns is based on your non-renewals. I feel and we feel that the policy is flawed, is discriminatory, is biased. It does not take into consideration factors that are necessary. We feel that we have some added nuances that were not seen. There's some underlying problems with the process. And if we go to the DSEG order, some of the parts that we were mentioned during the equity phase of the DSEG process, it was not followed. We're asking that you all discuss it, maybe table it. Dr. Moore has agreed to a meeting with us, but hopefully some of you board members will attend it so that we can get a better understanding of this non-renewal policy and make it effective. Right now, we're hoping as soon as possible, the NAACP, for the first time, has complainants who filed on the dotted line. And as many of you know, 3 or more similar acts constitute a pattern. We see a pattern. So we think we need to intercede on this early, quickly, and get it resolved because people and teachers' lives are at stake, are hung in the balance. I'll leave you with just one thing. The process is so flawed that you have an individual who in past times had a problem with African-American students, teachers, and staff. They were openly removed from a campus in broad daylight as a principal. That person now is in a position that has total action and effect on the lives of African-American teachers and staff. This is not acceptable. Please allow this process to go deeper, take a deep look into what's going on, get a better understanding, and do what's right for all teachers, which enhances all students in Indian River County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And I had one more for action, Ms. Binford. That's been changed to discussion, so we will add that at that time. Okay. Board members, any comments regarding citizen input? And then I'll ask the superintendent.
I'm sorry, we didn't have anything for action. So you said that there was a comment for action.
No, I said it was for action. I'm moving it to discussion because your addition was moved to discussion.
But originally, there was nothing on the agenda for action.
That's right, that's
So
right.
there shouldn't be a comment, citizen comment for action.
I changed it to a citizen comment for board discussion since the action item you wanted to put as action was moved to discussion. I wanted to make sure she had time to speak.
But you don't do that.
I
You
wish to
can't-
speak to a board discussion item. It's printed on the discussion agenda, and I'm going to allow that person to speak during that time.
But you just said that you put it on as that it was originally requested during an action item.
That's correct.
So
That's
if
correct.
it's originally requested as an action item, based on what we had on our agenda, there was
There's
no
no
action
right,
item.
Right.
So
You wanted to move that, since we did not move it to action, you wanted to put it at board discussion, and I just want to make sure
I
she had.
wanted?
You said, I will now add it to board discussion
But
since you
these
couldn't
were
get an action.
submitted these were submitted before I requested to put my items on.
All right, there's no action item, right. So you're saying you don't want her to speak?
I don't know who it was, it doesn't really
Joanne
matter.
Binford.
I'm just asking you, if we're gonna be fair, we're gonna be fair with everybody.
Actually, Ms. Rosario, at this time, I'm telling you, I'm trying to be fair. This was requested for action. We don't have any action items.
What is the topic?
Ms. Binford said this was being moved to action, but does not have an item letter yet. The topic was LGBTQ. That's what I'm trying to do.
I'm just trying to
Okay.
understand what happened.
And I was trying to make sure Ms. Binford knew that we moved to discussion, I will call you up, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So
I
why
wanted to make
doesn't
sure
she
she
now?
could speak.
Why doesn't she just speak now?
Okay, that's fine.
You can speak now to that item. We've had comments and then.
Okay, that's fine, if you wanted to do it now. I just wanted to be fair to you, Ms. Binford, thank you.
All right. Okay, so I'm speaking on the LGBTQ comment, and I'm going to keep it real simple and stick with the science. Oh, I'm going to stick with real simple and stick with the science. Females carry the double X chromosomes, and males carry the XY chromosomes. As action 2 for student privacy does not include the right to privacy from their parents, only third parties. Parents are the guardians of their children, therefore this wording should clearly state without the parents' consent, not student or parent. That means either or. That means you can ask the student and not the parent. These minor children are under the guardianship of their parents. Children do not have the adult authority to make these decisions unless they are emancipated. And I'm a 16-year veteran with the school district, you know that. And under the policy when I was working here, if you're 18 years old and you're under the guardianship of your parent, you can't sign yourself out for school. So why would you be able to make adult decisions at school campus? HB 1557 makes it very clear if there's a change to a student's service or monitoring that will impact the student's emotional, physical, mental, or well-being, parents must be notified. In addition, to affirm a student's name and pronouns without parental consent is a violation of parental rights. Action 3, names and pronouns. Federal or Florida state law does not require schools to call a student by a requested name or use gender pronouns consistent with their gender identity. This action wording should make clear that a student's name and pronouns on any unofficial document must be with the consent of the parent. Action 4, restroom and locker rooms. Neither federal nor Florida state law requires schools to allow a transgender student access to the locker room corresponding to their consistently asserted identity. The action basically states restrooms for students will be co-ed as well as locker rooms where people undress. Females carry the XX chromosomes, I'll say that again, and may enter locker rooms with males that carry an XY chromosome. That's what this is saying. This is unacceptable. The restrooms or the locker room action does not in any way fit in Florida Statute 1006.205, Fairness Women's Sports Act, or Title 9, and the Equal Protection Clause. Title IX interferes with Title VII's mandate of equal protection between classes. And what I mean by that is which are female chromosome, XX chromosome, female sports are female sports, male sports are male sports, and then you have co-ed sports. If you have an issue with transgender kids, have them play co-ed sports.
Thank you, Ms. Binford. All right, now we'll go to any board member comments, and the superintendent, Mr. Barefoot, any?
No, I'll wait.
Okay, Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, I'll wait for comments on this issue until later. I do want to clarify, though, a couple people made comments about board members showing up to meetings, and I want to be clear that a board member can show up to a meeting. Multiple board members cannot show up to meetings that are not publicly noticed. So though several of you have invited multiple of us to show up, we can't actually legally do that. Only one board member can show up to a non-noticed meeting at a time. And I want to be clear, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. We're not intentionally not showing up. We're legally prohibited in non-noticed meetings. I just want to clarify that. Other comments I'll save till later.
Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, I'm just going to disagree with you on that one. We can show up at meetings, we just have to be careful not to talk about anything that's going to be a board action item. Because we've been together multiple times at the Taxpayers Association meeting, for example.
But those are not district meetings, so we can't go to a private meeting
So I'd
held
just
by
like for you
Dr.
to
Moore
clarify
with
which
community
meetings.
members. Okay, we can't go to a private meeting held by Dr. Moore in a private setting with community members where 2 or more of us show up. We're not allowed to do that.
Ms. Rosario?
Dr. Moore, there was a comment here about the PTA president-elect accusing me of violating ethics. Would you like to speak to that, please, sir?
Through the chair, the most straightforward comment is we reviewed everything that individual sent in regarding that specific allegation, and he was communicated to today that based on both my opinion as well as the legal counsel that there wasn't anything for us to take any further action, no need to take any further action.
Well, why? Why was there no need to take any further action?
Because in review of the allegation, there was no need to take any additional action.
So there was nothing illegal or unethical?
What I've said and continue to say, the syncing of calendars is not illegal.
So, but calendars weren't synced. I mean, I think because that's an issue that wasn't cleared up or clarified in your email. The calendars weren't synced. The school district did not properly vet, or I would say redact, items in my work calendar, where items in my personal calendar showed up in my work calendar. And those items were not properly redacted, they weren't properly vetted, and they were sent out. 296 pages of calendar items were released. The original request was only 6 months prior to April 7th. Instead, the person received a year and a half worth of calendar items from public records requests, of which the entire year of 2022 didn't even happen. So items that are on my calendar as of December 2022 were sent out. So that's part of the issue. And this individual decided that when he was, I guess, contacted by public records and said that he was given the wrong document, that he should not be given the wrong document. Obviously, I'm summarizing, Dr. Moore, please chime in anytime. That not to use personal items that were not redacted on the error of the school district, not the error of this board member. There was nothing illegal or unethical. And using calendar, your work calendar, to put personal items, like I have a dentist appointment or I have, whatever, babysitting or whatever it is that is not illegal or unethical. So just for the record, before it shows up in the news, I needed to clarify that. Dr. Moore has already apologized to me. That, I don't know what that was, but he has already apologized to me privately, and I'm just airing, letting you all know exactly what happened, because I'm sure it will show up completely twisted in the news. So that was regarding a comment from a citizen. And I did have a comment of Miss Julie White, the PTA president. It's nice to have you here. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. This isn't the opportunity to engage in, but I'd love to have a conversation with you one-on-one. I have talked with many parents who were not notified of this vote that was happening. Many parents did not receive an email. So that, I'm talking across the district. I've asked multiple parents, and maybe that would be something to look into, because if you didn't have anyone show up, why? Why weren't they involved? Why weren't they notified? Why didn't they want to get involved? Except for one person who ran unopposed. So I think that's something to really take into consideration. And then at some point, maybe we can talk about that. Or I don't know how the district moves forward, just so that other people know. And I'm not really too sure, but PTAs run independent of the school district. They are their own 501c3. So they don't really have anything to do with board members or the district. The only thing is that in your bylaws, I believe, you have to be able to work with board members professionally and collaboratively. Am I correct, Dr. Moore, Ms. White?
They're 501c3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Just a few comments. I want Dr. Moore to talk a little bit more about this is not a policy, number one. I understand that email is a public record. I understand calendars are a public record. I know anything I put on that is for public record, so I certainly understand that. One of the things, just a comment on, several people talked about mental health, and the HB 1557 really talks about mental health and what we need to do for our students. And of course, that's always with parent permission. We understand that, we know that. Sometimes parents request this, so that's something we will look at because, as we've all said, a couple of years have been tough, and we want to make sure we are there to support our students and our families. So I think that's very, very important. And when you totally read the House Bill 1557, you know, what it is saying is that we are here for our students. We are here for our parents. It is a combination of a lot of people working together to make sure that we have success in schools for every individual. So that's the one thing I wanted to say on that. Dr. Moore, anything on public comment?
Thank you. I think I'll be able to respond to board members' questions regarding the guide in discussion, so we'll be able to take it a little bit deeper there. I want to thank everyone for coming out and sharing your concerns, feedback, whatever that topic may be, and quite honestly, that is how we problem solve to ensure that we provide a district that is meeting the needs of all kids, and it's not easy, it's not simple. Just a little bit deeper on the renewals or non-renewals. We have a very straightforward process. In the state of Florida, we have the opportunity to implement a contract and then go through a non-renewal process. There are individuals that are being non-renewed without cause, no stated cause. They have fulfilled their specific contract. There's going to be over 100 jobs posted right now. Those individuals have every right to apply and pursue any of those jobs in which they're qualified for and meet qualifications. But I will definitely meet with Mr. Brown and any individuals he thinks are appropriate to problem solve to address any concerns that they may have. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Now we will move on.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Terry. I'm so sorry, Ms. Berenberg. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Couple things. One, I'm going to keep my comments for the item about the LGBTQ guide until we do that discussion. But I do want to say, anytime a board member, including myself, is accused of something, there's a process, if you all remember your oath, that we have to take. In ethics training, they teach us this, that we have to tell that person that they can call the Commission on Ethics. That is the only thing that I've ever said to anything, because it's not my job as a board member to criticize another board member. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Sorry, Ms. Berenborg. Speak up. We can't see you, so I'm just kind of.
Put your hand up.
Yeah. All right. Review poll consent items. If we have any, we don't have any, but consent to action, we do not have any. All righty. So at this point, we have some discussion items.
Wait, you have to approve the consent agenda.
I'm sorry.
Consent.
You're right. Okay, I'd like to have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. So moved by Dr. Schiff.
Second.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Barefoot. Any discussion? Thank you. Vote. All in
Aye.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ms.
Aye.
Okay. All right. That's a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much.
Dr. Jones, can I make a comment about that?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge one thing that just got passed in the consent agenda, which is Dr. Moore put a late item on for a grant writer.
Right.
And I just want to acknowledge how delighted I am for this. This is something I've been advocating for for 4 years and 3 superintendents now. And I'm really delighted to see. I am aware of federal and other dollars that are out there that we don't have a structure to apply for, and we miss out as a result. So I'm delighted that there will be a person whose job is specifically to go after, solicit, and write grants for resources to come into this district. So thank you for that.
And just as a note, no additional cost to the overall operating budget. This position will self-generate based on the grants or the indirect costs which we pull back from any received funding.
Thank you.
All righty. Since you've already done the superintendent's report, we're good there. So we are going to go on to discussion. And the first one is Ms. Rosario, board protocol, and we are going to make sure we have board protocols, presentation 10 minutes, Then we'll do the round robin and see where we go from there.
Board members, if you remember, back in April, we had a discussion about, in February, we had a discussion about adding to the board protocols on page 7, if you all have your protocols with you. I'm pulling mine up now. There was an item that, I don't recall who it was who put it on there, that said that during the board business meetings, each school board member has the right to initially present on an item for up to 10 minutes. Following the initial presentation of the item, each board member may initially comment on the topic for up to 3 minutes. The discussion will continue in round robin fashion until the discussion is complete. The board chairperson asks for a vote, or a board member calls the question without interrupting another board member. The problem with that is the 10 minutes, this was initially, if you go back, I know Dr. Moore sent an email about this on April 27th, but you cannot have an action item during a discussion session. You don't have a vote during discussion. So the writing of how this, the way that this is written is contradictory. So that's the discussion. We need to rewrite this or remove it altogether. But the rewriting of it would have to be only during action items, or 10 minutes only during discussion, either way, and then remove, or if it's during the action item, keep the vote in there.
Okay, any board members' comments? Mr. Barefoot or Dr. Schiff, or start with Mr. Barefoot? I gotta remember Ms. Barrenborg.
Well, I certainly remember the discussion. What I don't recall is to differentiate between agreeing on a protocol and a quote-unquote vote in a discussion setting. We've had several discussions around protocol. The most recent, whenever it was, Dr. Matthews facilitated them. I agree with your summary because it's in writing. What I don't understand is protocol. Does protocol have to be voted on in a business meeting as opposed to agreed to or voted on as a discussion item when it's protocol as opposed to policy?
No, only policies need to be voted on. Protocols are just expectations for behavior.
All right.
So you can talk about protocols, which is one of the reasons why we did the protocols, because they can be changed at any time.
And so what, that's right. So what you're asking for is rewording, but we did agree, the consensus was just what you read.
I know, and there's a problem with it. There was consensus, but there is clearly a problem with the way that it's written. Because during discussion session, such as the one that we're having now, there is no vote to be taken during discussion session. You don't vote during a discussion session.
I understand, but there was an agreement, call it, that the wording that you're now questioning, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be edits to it. I'm just saying that what you just read is part of the protocols.
Somebody didn't catch it. Yeah, I guess somebody didn't catch it. We didn't catch it. But now I'm bringing it up because I caught it. The discussion will continue it should be during an action item only, and then a vote should be taken during an action item. We shouldn't be timing ourselves during discussion sessions. This should only be during an action item, not during a discussion session. That's contradictory.
Sorry, Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with clarifying some of the language here, but I disagree with what we are clarifying. The item here says during board business meetings, each school board member has a right to initially present on an item for up to 10 minutes. It doesn't specify a discussion or an action item, but limits the initial presentation to 10 minutes. I'm fine with clarifying there to initially present on an action or discussion item for up to 10 minutes. Later on, what Mrs. Rosario was pointing to, the discussion will continue in round-robin fashion until the discussion is complete, which would address discussion items. The board chairman asks for a vote, which would address action items, or a board member calls the question, which would address action items. So I don't see it as missing or lacking distinction between an action item or a discussion item. I think it is clear enough, but if we want to put in language on the beginning that says a right to initially present on an action or discussion item for 10 minutes, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. The discussion will continue in round-robin fashion until the discussion is complete, addresses discussion items. Or, it doesn't say or, but it's implied by the comma, the board chairperson asks for a vote, that's an action item, or the board member calls the question, that's an action item. I think it's inclusive. But if you want to put limit to 10 minutes on an action or discussion item, I don't have a problem with that.
I would be okay with just action alone.
Well, I wouldn't, that's my
Initial
point.
presentation of the action item.
Yeah, but I believe it should be.
Clarifying action.
Yeah, but that's my point. I think we should limit to 10 minutes on initial presentation of discussion or action items. I think both
Well,
of
I
them.
disagree.
We need, I understand that, and that's the purpose of having a board that has different opinions. We get to disagree. And so in this, I feel that we should limit initial presentation to 10 minutes. Otherwise, we have sat here at times for presentation on items for 20, 25, and 30 minutes. And I think we should limit initial presentation to 10 and allow other board members to express an opinion and continue to go around until the topic is exhausted.
Okay, Ms. Berenborg, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree with cleaning up the language, and I also agree with the fact that putting in 10 minutes for discussion and or action, because that allows everybody to be able to chime in and speak before it gets to be too lengthy. And that person who presents can always come back and add more after everybody got to speak at least one time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
When we look back at the mini workshops when we dealt with this, it's the first time the boards have had any kind of protocol. And we adopted this on January 24th, 5-0. Then a consent item April 25th, because we had a discussion in February to talk about public records requests made by board members. So it's taken a lot of time, and we're trying our best to move forward. I think anybody in a speech or debate class will say, if you don't get your point across in the first couple of minutes, you might lose your audience. So it's something to think about. But I think it'd be discussion or action. I just think it's something that we want to stay clear on. We want the person to have it to present, and 10 minutes should be enough. Then we do the round robin. Actually, I did check with our attorney on this, because this would, discussion. How do we end that? Well, the chair can move to end discussion if she feels or he feels that we've really kept talking about it. So I would be okay with discussion or action, but since this is a discussion item, I don't think what anybody's trying to do when we thought about this was deny anybody time to talk, but you wanted to make sure everyone had that opportunity, and we kind of close it up and go from there. But a lot of work has gone in through here. So any other comments from board members and discussion?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
To your point, the discussion will continue in round-robin fashion until the discussion is complete. To your point, do you want to add, or the chair determines that, some language, I don't know what it is right now, we can workshop it, but some language that says until the discussion is complete, as determined how, right? By the chair determining that, or by the board members exhausting the topic. But we can workshop that language, but I don't know that there's disagreement on the premise here.
Discuss it again. We're discussing it now.
Well, we're discussing it, but it's not an action
We're
item.
discussing it now. We're discussing
Then I would leave it alone, to be honest. Or I would add, initially present on an action or discussion item for up to 10 minutes. I'm comfortable adding that, but more than that is, I don't feel the need at the moment.
I agree with Dr. Schiff, discussion or action, and at the end, if the chair wants to move to end the discussion, since it's not a vote, there's something we have to, again, respect what people are saying and listening and making sure everybody is being able to say. So we could workshop that and see if we want to go through that again. You could put that on a workshop.
We're discussing it now. What you do at a workshop is discuss.
No, Ms. Rosario, I
So
understand we're
discussing
discussing
it
now, but there's no action item
Okay,
here.
but you're asking me.
Yes,
so
I'm
let me-
asking you, do you
but
want to put it on a
You're
workshop?
interrupting me.
I
So
just
let
said,
me
do you
res-
want to do a
But let me
workshop?
respond. Let
Okay,
me,
go
let
ahead,
me,
yeah.
let me respond.
I heard you.
Okay.
I heard you.
So if we're discussing it now, there's no need to workshop it because there's no action to be done. This is the discussion. So the consensus is there are more than one board member, minus myself, who have already expressed that they would like to add action or discussion. I would like just action only. Clearly, the consensus wins. That's it, done.
Okay.
Dr. Moore, can you please change that and add it to the protocol?
I don't think that's, I'm not clear
Add
if
it
that's
to
for
this.
Dr. Moore to add. These are our protocols,
Oh,
not
well,
his.
I'd like to take this
But
back
he's
to
the
the
one
board
that puts it
workshop.
on there for us. His staff puts it on our protocols for us and adds the word action or discussion. Do you not want the words action or discussion on there?
Personally, I don't care, but I'm finding a compromise.
Okay. So Dr. Moore, can you have your staff add those words in there for us, please?
Through the chair, if there needs to be additional dialogue, I would encourage the board to have dialogue. The action that I would take is to bring an item based on what I would perceive consensus to be for the board to vote it up or vote it down. If you wanted to add both action item and discussion, 10 minutes, I don't really see it significantly changing the overall meaning of what's already there.
What do you mean? I don't understand what you just said. What does that mean? You don't see a difference? The difference is adding action or discussion.
Versus what it already says, it says an item, which is an action item, a discussion item, any specific item that's on the agenda.
I understand.
My recommendation would be that since we have taken this to consent and action, that if we want to make a change, that we do an action item at a next board meeting, because it seems to be very important for what people are trying to say. And just like we did with protocols, we took it to action and consent and discussion in February. So I would like to move it to an action item. That's how I'm thinking about it.
We don't need to vote on it. There's nothing to vote, you don't vote on protocols.
Okay, Ms. Rosario, we disagree. I'm saying to change the protocol, take it to an action item. That's what I'm just suggesting.
Ms. Shattuck, do protocols need to be voted on?
Thank you, through the chair. It's my understanding that the board has voted on the protocols in the past, so my recommendation would be that if you wanted to change them again, to do that, and it sounds like in this instance, you could have the superintendent change the protocols to clarify that the 10 minutes refers to action and discussion items, and then just bring it back on an agenda for the board to vote on. Thank you.
But that wasn't what I asked you. What I asked you was, does the board have to vote on protocols?
Yeah, so my advice would be for the board to vote on protocols because that's been the board's process in the past of when they are deciding on protocols on what they want the board to do, that they show their acceptance by voting on it.
So, Mr. Barrenborg, Mr. Barron, I'm
On
sorry.
April 25th, we voted on this on a consent item. In the past, we voted on adopting the protocols. If we're going to change them, we should follow our own procedures and
Right.
vote on them again.
Yes.
I was gonna say Mr. Barefoot. I apologize, I didn't mean to say Mr. Barrenborg. Goodness.
There is a Mr. Barrenborg.
There is
but he's
one, but it's not
Mrs.
you.
Barrenborg.
Mr. Barefoot, initially, your question was, do we have to vote on this? We don't have to vote on it, but apparently we voted on it in the past. It's not a protocol. It's not a policy. It's a protocol expectation. That was the initial comment earlier.
Okay, well, the attorneys said it would be best to kind of follow our own protocol and move this to an action item at a next board meeting if somebody would like to do that.
Dr. Moore, can you please add this to the next action item with the words action or discussion on there, and then let us vote on it? Thank you. All right.
Thank you. All right, our next discussion, Ms. Rosario, LGBTQ Resource Guide.
Yeah, board members, I have come across, it's not new, a policy. If you all have your computers, I see that many of you do. If you do not, I will hand out, Mrs. Berenborg, it's policy 1030.01. Dr. Schiff. And if you can hand this to Nancy as well. And then Dr. Moore. Policy 1030.01 is titled The Development of Administrative Procedures. So essentially what this says is that the board delegates to the superintendent the authority to determine whether administrative procedures will be needed to implement each of the policies adopted by the board. When the content of the procedure meets the definition of a rule set forth in Chapter 120, and just so that you know, 120 is just simply the superintendent's responsibilities, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the board shall adopt said administrative procedure. So it is our responsibility to adopt and vote on administrative procedures. We vote on policies, and when the superintendent brings to us procedures, we vote on procedures. Further, when the judgment of the superintendent adoption of the board is advisable, the adoption of said procedures shall be recommended by the superintendent for adoption. All administrative procedures shall be consistent with the adopted policies. So all administrative procedures shall be consistent with adopted policies, those that have come to us for a vote. The superintendent may also issue administrative and student handbooks, both administrative and student handbooks, as may be necessary for the effective administration of the schools, and distribute them to employees, students, and their parents. As long as the provisions of these administrative procedures and handbooks, both procedures and handbooks, are consistent with board policy, with federal or state law, they will be considered an extension of the policy manual and binding upon all employees and students. And of course, there are legal statutes there, the statutes that were mentioned before. So what I'm discussing here with the LGBTQ administrative guide and the administrative procedures, which is what I requested to add for discussion, was the fact that this development of administrative procedures was not followed. This could be called a guide or a resource. It could be called anything you want. But essentially, it's giving instructions to administrators to do something, and it is tied to two policies, because Mrs. Dampierre sent an email with the explanation of the changes, tied to two policies, policy 2266 and 2260. It is also stated in here that it is also tied to a state law, 1006.205, and the Title IX federal law, all of which, because they are tied to policy, state law, and federal law, they should be either procedure or handbook adopted by the board. It is not appropriate for the district to move forward with this guide without having been vetted through and two board members for an adoption, for a vote and for an adoption. To all extent, actually, Paul Westcott made a really good point. Policy first, and then procedure. In this case, there is no policy to support this procedure. So because there is no policy to support this procedure, what I wanted to put on action was for us to vote on taking it off completely and waiting, because there is a secondary portion of this that is tied to the education, the Parents' Rights in Education bill. Parents' Rights in Education bill that was signed just recently, 1557. The very last section, Section 2, reads, by June 30th, 2023, The Department of Education shall review and update as necessary school counseling, frameworks and standards, educator practices and professional conduct principles, and any other student services, personnel guidelines, standards, or frameworks in accordance with the requirements of this act. So putting the cart before the horse, twice, you have an administrative guide that is not tied to a policy, that is not tied to a that is indeed a procedure or a handbook, either way, has not been vetted by board members, nor presented, nor voted on. And we are waiting for guidance from the DOE on what those standards and frameworks should look like in order for this to even be considered. So that is my discussion item. If I need to put back on so that we can vote on it, but I'm hoping that there could be consensus here to put everything on hold, hold the horses. We need to pull back the reins and kind of take a step back from whatever this is, not even discussing the content of it, but just the process of how it was done. This was originally created in 2020 school year, without board acknowledgement, approval, or view, or vote, or anything. And then now it was just revised, again, without coming to us. Aside feeling like that's pretty shady, that's not tied to policy and therefore should be removed completely until the right process and procedure is in place for us to deal with this appropriately.
Okay, board member comments, discussion?
I have a...
Doc?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Ms. Berenborn.
If you don't mind, I'd like to go next since I'm the one that found it originally.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So the former resource guide was sent to me by a concerned teacher after receiving it in a faculty meeting. When that happened back, I want to say in March or April, I called the superintendent, and because it was brought up at a faculty meeting and distributed to teachers to use, I was told that it was sent out by mistake and that it would be taken care of. Didn't realize that it was still out there being sent out to principals. I have several concerns because parents were left out of the loop. Pronouns are being changed. Athletics was not even discussed by the board. So to me, it didn't seem transparent. And the board didn't get a chance to discuss it or hear about it. I understand that there are lots of procedures that the superintendent does day to day, but this one is a hot topic. It should have come to the board. The new guide was sent to principals, but was not discussed with us. I specifically have some concerns about Action 2. Without the students' or parents' rights is still a concern. Action 3 does not include parental permission. Action 4, this has not been discussed by the board. How will parents of students that may be uncomfortable with this be included or informed? Accommodations should be student-driven. What about parental decisions? So the last one is Action 5. Of course, we have a state law concerning athletics. So all students should have and feel safe and comfortable at school. All students, not at the cost of other students' rights. And the federal DOE and legislative body determines the title and IDEA laws, and the state DOE and legislator determine all state laws. But in this case, whose law is more important? We have parental rights laws. We have laws concerning athletics. We need to follow those laws. And we do not parent children. We educate them and communicate with their parents. So parents make final decisions regarding students' health, both mental and physical. The school year is almost over. We need to have an understanding of what this guide is. And I think it needs to go to the Attorney General since we're in between Title IX and the state laws. I have recently asked the superintendent to look into creating single-use bathrooms, and I am formally requesting that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berenborg. Appreciate it. Mr. Barefoot?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. This policy is 9 years old. The procedures that we're talking about were put in place 5, 6, 7 years ago. Is that correct? And and then they've been edited. You and, Dr. Moore, you inherited, I'll call them this, procedures. They were already in place, is that correct?
Through the chair, I think they were in development upon my arrival. I don't know if they have actually were pushed out prior to me actually being here, but they were in creation.
All right, so the document, the first formal document, call it, was created when you first got here, and it was amended last year. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. It was updated earlier this
Right.
calendar year. Yes, sir.
All right.
Last month. It was created in 2020.
Right.
He was here.
That's what I just asked, and that's what he just said.
No, he said that I thought he said that he inherited it.
No,
He said they were
I
in
asked the
process.
question, did he inherit it?
Oh.
Or, and he said, no, it may have been in the works, but the first formal document, his
First one.
administration was the author of, and then it was updated, edited, whatever, here recently. And it was applicable to the school year 21-22. We're now talking about the school year 22-23. So it seems to me that, given this discussion, that the reasonable thing to do is go back to the drawing board, have it reviewed with all the various inputs, whether it's federal law, whether it's state law, et cetera, and whatever changes need to be made to it can be made, and bring it back to the board.
Okay, Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, a few things on this. And this is one of those moments, we've talked about this before, where items get added at the last minute and then materials are handed out and we haven't had sufficient time to look through the materials and back up. So just on a quick search, Mrs. Rosario, you said that procedures have, that the superintendent, according to this, the superintendent can devise and administer procedures consistent with board policy, right? So, quick search, correct me if I'm wrong, Board Policy 2260, non-discrimination and access to equal educational opportunity. General statement, any form of discrimination or harassment can be devastating to an individual's academic progress, social relationship. I'm not going to read the whole policy, but there is a policy here. There is a policy, unless I'm misinterpreting, because this was a quick search, Ms. Shattuck, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a non-discrimination policy. The superintendent is developing a procedure and a protocol consistent with board policy. That said, what is also true about this, so first off, there are many school guidelines that don't come before the board. If the superintendent had to bring every guideline before the board, he'd never get his work done. That's what we hired him to do. That's his job, is to administer the district. And we can't completely hamstring the guy we hired to run the district. Now, clearly this is controversial. Clearly there are issues around this that people have really strong feelings about. The guidelines, when they were released, as I understand it, were under revision. They were not meant to be released in this moment. They were under revision to be consistent with laws that would come into effect July 1st. Am I correct, Dr. Moore, on that? July 1st is the law.
Through the chair, there are required revisions as a result of that. There's information we need to receive from the state, and as I said earlier, there are cases that are currently being heard that when they have a verdict may ultimately shift or modify it again. So,
Right.
all correct.
So we're clear that this is not a final document. This is not a completed document, and this document is undergoing consistent review in order to be consistent with current law. And we know that some laws are changing in a month,
Through the chair.
and we're reviewing those.
The answer is yes, but as I put my eyes on the document and thoroughly review it, some of the way things are worded causes confusion for me and
Right.
anyone else who reads it.
Right. And so when you became aware of that, you went back to the document and were looking to revise that and charge staff to revise it. Am I correct?
Through the chair, I asked staff to revise it. They worked with school board attorney, they made revisions, and they continue to provide that information to principals. So the only modification is for me to take a deeper look at it, which I did not, in order to ensure that it was in fact communicated. The reality is this was not a procedure, this was a guide for principals to answer questions based on the reality in their specific school. We have to, policy, provide guidance to principals. I understand what Ms. Rosario is saying, respect what she is saying, but adamantly disagree regarding procedure. It is delegated to me. If every procedure that I create and develop, whether it is me or whether it is this outstanding team that stands in front of us, sits in front of us, that's all you would do. And let me be honest, 2 years ago, you hardly had any handbooks. You hardly had any procedures because staff was afraid to act. They were afraid to act. Why? Situations like this.
Right.
This is why. What's the outcome of that? Piss poor academic outcomes, which is the 6% where we were 18-19 below the previous district. So these are hard and difficult conversations, but we have to have them. Right. And there are people, rightfully so, who are concerned with what they read. I will send it to anybody. Look at it, give feedback. People in the room know, I'll meet with anybody. That's my job. I am running the public's school system and will engage in the dialogue and conversation to ensure no one is discriminated against. Absolutely no one. So I will pause because I'm on a soapbox, but the reality is, I wish I would have thoroughly reviewed it because there's some simple things said differently. Doesn't change the meaning, but the interpretation causes the ruckus that is not the reality. And that's the frustrating point. The reality in schools is not the concerns that are being shared. This is not a concern in our schools. The athletic, the way that was written, is not a concern. It's not a truth in our schools yesterday, today, and it will not be in the future. It's about doing things the absolute right way. And in some ways, it'll be conversation and dialogue that we're going to have to eat. And I say we, board members, put it on me. Put it on me. Because it is my administrative procedure that, yes, I had staff create. Yes, I had that information shared with principals. I do not believe it is your responsibility to approve every procedure that I create. That is what is delegated to me in order to do. And the day that that has to be the reality, my ability to move at 1,000 miles an hour, which is already going around less than that because of other things that are just not the priority around teaching and learning, becomes even slower. So let me, if I could just ask the attorney, administrative procedures, am I in the wrong? What's the reality?
Yes, through the chair, I agree that the superintendent has the authority over procedures. It is in the policy that we have in front of us, which is 1030.01, which does say that the school board delegates to the superintendent the authority to determine whether administrative procedures are needed to implement policies. I would say, though, that I would not consider this document to be a policy or procedure. And not all documents fall into the realm of policies or procedures. You have memorandums, you have tables, you have frequently asked questions, you have presentations, you have all kinds of different ways of disseminating information to staff or to the public or, other means of doing so, and they're not necessarily all policy or procedure. This to me reads mostly kind of like a frequently asked questions, like it's just intended to advise staff, but it's also intended to tell them for specific instances to follow up with student services or legal, so we can take it on a case-by-case basis as opposed to prescribing, a specific this is the policy and this is the law and this is what you have to follow. It doesn't really have that authority or tone.
Excuse me, we can hear, thank you. All right, my turn. Oh, I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
are you finished?
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Jones?
Yes, I haven't
I wa-
spoken yet.
I know, but I wasn't finished because
I'm
we went to
sorry.
Dr. Moore and then Ms. Shattuck.
I apologize.
What I want to make clear about this, it's clear this needs some revisions. We've all acknowledged that. We've all acknowledged that the input is helpful. We've all acknowledged it needs some revisions. And we've all acknowledged that we want and need parental input into our policies. We want to work with families. There's this story out there that I'm not in favor of that. And it's 100% untrue as the person sitting on the board with a student who just graduated after being in this district. I follow this stuff all the time. And what I see in this document, and I want to be clear, is that what it does is it actually ensures consistency between and among our schools, between and among our administrators, so that everybody is following the same information.
Go ahead.
That,
Time's up.
Did she have her 3 minutes?
we're kidding, right?
No.
Did she
That's
start her
Dr.
3
Moore and Ms.
minutes?
Shattuck were talking for the entire time.
Your time was stopped when they were talking.
Oh, for God's sake.
All right, go ahead
Whatever.
and start the 3 minutes for me, and then we'll go round robin again.
We could remove that whole policy of the 10 minutes
No,
and the
thank
3.
you, okay.
Well, I find it interesting how
All right,
convenient it
please.
is,
All right.
Rosario,
I'll
that you
remove
jump
it.
on,
Ms.
time's
Rosario,
up, time's up,
please.
as long as it's not you. It's fascinating.
We've said this already, this is not a policy. One of the most important policies we have is non-discrimination for all students. I think everyone would understand that. This was talked about a lot at one of our former meetings, that it's the superintendent who has the authority to determine whether administrative procedures will be needed. That's his authority. And we also talked about how a lot of them were out of date and we had to change them. I do not believe this is a shady thing. This went out on email. Email is a public document to principals. And as we've all said, there are revisions that need to be done when you look at it. And with the law coming up, July 1 is being implemented. When Representative Grahl came to us to talk about the Parents' Right Bill, she said there would be case studies because there was some vagueness. So we're trying to do our best to make sure that we are specific in what we're telling our schools and our students. Just looking at this from a former principal, dress code is never an issue. We talk about that. Student privacy, we always would keep our parent aware, and we know that working with our students and parents together is the right thing to do. Names and pronouns, this is when I was a principal, we didn't have an issue with that. We just had a few requests at that time, though. But the teachers and students were fine. Actually, I work with that at the state level with a couple things. Restrooms and locker rooms, we talked about with the revision, maybe having single entry restrooms and so forth to take a look at so that no one feels uncomfortable. Interscholastic athletics, I was there for 5 years. There'll always be an appeal process at the FHSAA, no matter what. There'll be an appeal process, but the Women's Act empowerment for sports, that's pretty clear. And like Dr. Moore said earlier, if you don't have a girls' team in wrestling, they could be on the boys' team. The boys cannot be on the girls' team. I mean, but that's going to be pretty specific with the Florida statute. School functions, bringing same gender dates, they've been doing that for 20 years at proms and so forth, homecoming, clubs, GSAs, we have those at the high school and they're working well. Pride, when you look at the pride, is we don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable when they're coming to school. And all parents would say that of all children. We don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. So now I understand that we've got a few revisions and we've got to look at the athletics and making sure we're good with our restrooms and locker rooms. There's no doubt there. But when this all comes about as a resource guide, not a policy, not a procedure, Dr. Moore is in charge of the procedures, we'll have to make sure that it's fair and equitable, and that's our job for all students. Thank you.
If I can just summarize round one.
Mayor?
Dr. Moore, I'm sorry, just for 1 minute, and then go back to Ms. Rosario. Thank you.
Thank you, and I was just going to summarize after round one. I have absolutely no issues making the modifications and changes as are appropriate. I have absolutely no issues bringing it back to the board. I think as Ms. Barenborg had mentioned, this is a hot topic. This is something that needs to be discussed, and quite honestly, well and can be discussed. So as we make those changes or modifications, bringing it back for the board, I don't have any issues doing that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, several things. First of all, Ms. Shattuck, with all due respect, this is not an FAQ. This is direction to schools, and as a school building administrator, they need direction from the superintendent what to do if they're faced with a situation. If this is a resource guide, then they don't have to follow it, because it's just a guide. It doesn't matter. If it's a resource, it's just a help, it doesn't matter. They don't have to follow it. So if you're out there and you receive a resource guide, you don't have to follow it. But if it's a policy or if it's a procedure, then they have to follow it. So we've got to decide, even a handbook, what it is. It cannot be called a guide or a resource because anybody can ignore it. It needs to be something other. It needs to be direction to the school so they understand that if I'm faced with this situation, how am I going to handle it? As an administrator, this is how I'm going to handle it. Secondly, Dr. Moore, you did mention we can review it. You did say this is your administrative procedure. So you can rewind it, and you did say that. So this being an administrative procedure, we have a policy that very clearly outlines how to create administrative procedures. Whether you agree with it or not, it is policy, and it is legal and binding that any procedure, handbook, administrative procedure, or handbook that you are delegated to create has to come to the board to be adopted. To be adopted. There is an adoption process and a voting. 1030.01 is very clear on that. Nobody wants to, if your procedures, Dr. Moore, are not tied to policy, I don't know, how you walk down the hall right now. If that's not tied to a policy, you could create that procedure and it doesn't have to come to us. But if a procedure is tied to a policy or a law, as it states here, it has to come to the board for adoption. Whether you like it or not, it is written in black and white as our policy. Policy manual 1030. I can't even believe that people are like, no, that doesn't exist.
Okay.
It is policy is law. I still have 25 seconds.
Yes, you do. Thank you.
I didn't mention anything with other policies because we're not in that discussion for other policies. We do have other policies that this guide mentions. 2260 is one of them. We do have a non-discrimination policy, both for equal access opportunity and for the basis of sex.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Anyone else in the second round here?
Nothing else to say.
Dr. Schiff?
You know, there actually is a lot more to say. I'm just not sure we're going to get anywhere. And I don't know that it's productive to prolong the conversation because we have a variety of perspectives about this. We know that this document will come back for further discussion. So I think Dr. Moore made an excellent point that what we should be concerned about is what actually is happening here, not what's not happening here. It is a handful of times where this has come up as an issue where there have been specific conversations with parents and students about what to do. I believe we do need direction for administrators. We need consistency in the district, and we need to protect the rights of all students and all families here. And I strongly advocate that. I think this document is a step towards doing that. And when it comes back to us, having been refined in the ways that Dr. Moore says and consistent with upcoming law, we will be able to make the assessment how it best serves our district. There's a lot more I could say about this. The point of it actually is to be consistent with the Parental Bill of Rights, with
the parental rights and education law that will go into effect on July 1st. So there is much about this that we can continue discussing. There's also much about it that is not about new law, it's actually about old law. You know, dress code laws are 1969, GSA laws are 1984, Equal Rights Act, those are not new. So there's only a few things here that are new that we have to ensure that we are consistent with law and policy on, and I think Dr. Moore has said over and over again, he will bring those back for discussion, so.
Thank you. Ms. Berenborg, anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, just for a final comment, unless we go around again, but it states clearly the superintendent, we delegate to him for procedures. And as you know, there are hundreds of procedures out there in the schools and handbooks and so forth. And as a principal, you look at them and you see how you tie them to policy. But if he sent us every procedure developed, I mean, he is the one running the school. We look at the procedures, and we have been told several times, I read it, we have been told several times that we're going to do some revisions, and we're going to do, Ms. Rosario, please, I'm talking.
Okay.
No, that really is.
Does that bother you? I'm sorry.
The superintendent works with procedures. We had a long board meeting about that once, and because some procedures were changed, some were taken out, some were old, and that is his right to do. So, Dr. Moore, at this time, as far as revisions, can you give us a timeline, or your team, or getting the new law information?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I will do is, following this meeting, provide a communication to the board with a very, very specific time frame. I will clearly identify the opportunities to shift language so it is explicitly clear. I will provide the pending cases that are out there in which we're waiting that may have an impact on the changes. I will identify, once we hear from the state, any specific training that's going to be provided regarding new law that is being put in place effective July 1, and then bring it back to the board no later than July, and then every month moving forward until we have a final document that can be shared.
Thank you. Anyone else to conclude?
Yeah, I'd like to make note again that whether we like it or not, if he has to bring us 500 procedures for us to approve, that is what we have in policy, whether we like it or not. That is our policy. If we get into the habit of deciding, like we did with the law, which if you all did it with the law, I'm sure you're going to do it with the procedure, ignoring that we have a policy, then we might as well not even follow it. Don't follow law, don't follow procedure, don't follow anything. Do whatever you want and have a free-for-all. We have a policy in place so that we can govern ourselves. Our policy is our policy is our policy. And it says that all administrative procedures shall be consistent with adopted policies and shall describe the manner in which those policies are to be implemented. And with handbooks, they are all to come to us for adoption. It is what it is. Whether we like it or not, I will work 40 hours a week if you need me to come in and vote. That is my job. That is what I ran to do. That was why I was elected to do. If you need me to work 4 meetings a month to approve procedures, I will come in 4 days a month. Whatever it is, 4 meetings, it doesn't matter. That is our job as elected officials, to make sure that the policies and procedures are in place, to adopt budget, to oversee the work of the superintendent, because he and Ms. Shattuck are our only immediate hires. They are our employees.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Just one last statement on the development of administrative procedures. The first line says, the school board delegates to the superintendent the authority to determine whether administrative procedures will be needed to implement each of the policies adopted by the board. Whether this goes into policy or whether it stays as a resource guide or whatever it may be, that is how that begins.
You should keep reading.
I thank you.
You should keep reading because you're
All right, at this time, no ma'am, that was the very, very beginning of it. We also discussed that at other meeting, and we said that the superintendent would be doing the procedures. And that's how that meeting ended. So at this time, any more discussion on LGBTQ resource guide? Mr. Barefoot?
Just one last comment. We're talking about the policy and what follows from that, the procedures. Maybe we ought to review the policy.
Could be.
So if procedure follows policy, and this policy has created the last 45 minutes, and I'd refer to the gentleman sitting next, I forgot your name, excuse me, that instead of talking about academic outcomes, which is what I joined this school board in trying to improve them, we have spent all this time, and I'm withdrawing my discussion item, I'll put it on a workshop. We spent all this time talking about this, and policies and procedures and I mean, when are we gonna start talking about improving what we can do to help the superintendent and the 22 schools under his responsibility to improve educational outcomes? This is getting to the point of ridiculousness. And I'm not saying that these discussions aren't important, but they don't need to go on for 45 minutes.
Thank you, Mr.
Let's get
Barefoot.
back to reading, writing, and arithmetic is what the gentleman said earlier. And we've been hijacked, and I understand we're in that point in time in this country, but we're getting hijacked with all these issues that are important to a lot of people, but the amount of time spent vis-a-vis talking about improving educational outcomes for our kids is what we ought to be doing.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
I would just add to that I agree with you, but if we didn't have such rogue processes, if we didn't have such rogue, I'll do whatever I want, we wouldn't have to have these conversations. If we would follow what we have in place, we wouldn't have to have these conversations about why they're not followed in the first place.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rosario and Mr. Barefoot. All right, so now, anything else on the superintendent's report? I know you said something earlier.
That sums it up. Thank you,
You're done.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Now we will go into board member matters, and Ms. Berenborg, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, just quickly, I'm sorry I'm not there, but it is my birthday, so I was supposed to take the day off, but
Happy
since
birthday.
this came up, I decided to call in. So thank you for taking the meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Hope you're having a good day. Mr. Barefoot, anything for board member matters or anything at the end of the year and all these wonderful,
Well, I think
Yes.
we all enjoyed two wonderful graduations. The one Friday night was a little bit shaky for a while there between lightning and thunderstorms, but we made it through. And it's always exciting. And you got to feel really good for the kids and their parents, grandparents, guardians. So they're on their way to the next chapter in their lives. It was interesting to me, at least in the Vero Beach graduation, that they recognized, I think it was 8 students that are going into the military.
yes, they did. That was cool.
And there was not mentioned in the Sebastian,
Right.
but there was one gentleman walked by and he had U.S. Army on his sash. And I made a comment to him, but I think that's really, congratulations to those kids, congratulations to everybody, but I think in the world that we live in now, with all the stuff that's going on out there, to have, 8 young people, 1 Coast Guard, I think 1 Air Force, and the balance were the Army. Sign up for that. I think that tells you that despite all of the issues we seem to have, that there is a younger generation that is focused on some of the bigger issues that we all face. So that, for me, was one of the highlights, having those kids recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Barefoot. They were great. Dr. Schiff?
Yeah, everything about the graduations, we do that every year, and it's fun and exciting to see our kids graduate. This was a particularly exciting year for me. Watching my son graduate, and all of his friends who have been in and out of my house for years, so that was really moving this year. And congratulations, just to all of the students, wherever you're going next, whether it's to college, whether it's to technical education, whether it's into the workforce, whether it's into the military. Huge congratulations to all of you who are taking a year off to figure out what you want to do. You made it through these 13 years, and that's an accomplishment. The other thing I want to mention about that is I watched online the Indian River Charter graduation that we had to miss, and a comment was made about none of us being there. And I want to be clear in that none of us were there because there was a scheduling conflict, and the Indian River Charter graduation was scheduled for 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, and Sebastian was at 8 a.m., and there was no way that we could be there at the same time. So none of us were there, not because we didn't want to be there, but because the scheduling conflict prohibited us from being there. And I really want to be clear about that to anybody from Charter, that there was no disrespect in that at all. It was just impossible to be in both places. The other thing I want to mention is, and we talked about this a bit at the workshop, but the Treasure Coast Technical College did a wonderful welders showcase, which I got to go to, and I know Mrs. Berenborg went to, and Doc Jones went to, and we saw some of the amazing work by some of our welders who do things that I think we have no idea what's really possible in welding. Some of the work was so creative, was so professional, it was really remarkable. So shout out to the Technical College and Principal Shields and everybody who, and the welding instructor, Mr. Mosblek, everybody who has, and his assistant, Mike. I'm sorry, Mike, I don't know your last name. But thank you for all the work that you do for the students. I know that program's really expanding, and it was an absolute delight to see what the work had done and to actually try welding. I got to try welding, which was really fun, and have my son instruct me, so that was great. Other than that, congratulations to every student who is moving from elementary school to middle school, from middle school to high school, who is experiencing whatever transition that is for you. It's a big step, and we welcome you into the next phase of your education.
Thank you. Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I did not go, not because of the scheduling conflict to Charter High School, but because my son was sick, so obviously I needed to get home on time. Even though Sebastian River High School ended when it did, we still could have caught the tail end of Charter High School, and but that's the reason why I just didn't. So I appreciate you mentioning it, Dr. Schiff, but that's not my reasoning. The Indian River Homeschool Association graduated as well, obviously Vero Beach High School and Sebastian River High School, but I want to give a shout out to Wabasso graduation ceremony that happened on Friday. They were absolutely amazing. I love visiting Wabasso, and they had a wonderful graduation ceremony celebrating their children. Also this week coming up, let's not forget, board members, that we have Indian River Virtual School graduation on Tuesday evening. So if you are available, let's make sure to celebrate those students as well, even though virtually they're still ours. And Treasure Coast Technical College, I believe, is on Wednesday.
It's Wednesday night, 6 o'clock in the Vero Beach Performing Arts Center.
There you go. So if you are able, I'm not going to be able to attend that one. I will be out of town, but I do wish them well. I look forward to hearing wonderful things about their graduation ceremonies. There were several things that I attended. It's one of the down, I guess, things about meeting once a month is that you only get to meet once a month, and you can't actually, recall every single thing you did for the last 30 days. But Fellsmere Dual Language Celebration occurred, I'm going to say last week. It was, yeah. And it was so sweet. And if you have time to go, even on my Facebook page, I posted some videos. So amazing to have parents give their testimonies as to why they want their child to be in that dual enrollment language program. So Fellsmere Elementary, for some who don't know, all of our schools have an option. It's a school choice option, and they're all themed. And if any parents are interested in putting your child in any one of our schools, you have the choice to do that. You now have the option, and it is coupled with transportation. So if you need transportation, you don't have to be the one to actually drive your child to the school. In this case, Fellsmere created their theme to be dual enrollment, and so parents are opting their children into that program. And the kids that are a part of the program were speaking both English and Spanish. They were singing English and Spanish. Many of the parents said that they were actually going home teaching their parents proper Spanish, which is really sweet. And the parents were super excited because they were learning new words even themselves, even when Spanish is their first language. So it's just a wonderful thing that's happening over at Fellsmere. I just encourage everyone, whenever you get a chance to visit there, if you can, call the principal, ask for a tour. I'm sure he'd be more than willing, but if you are interested in a different approach to education, a dual language program there is phenomenal.
Thank you. One thing I forgot to mention on the consent agenda, this year in donations, we received $394,000. A special thank you to the many partners and groups that helped us through the school year. We value you and we thank you. The Economic Development Council meeting the other week was pretty good. It was short, but they were talking about the MPO meetings, talking about what we need as we grow in this county, and those are on the website of Economic Development Council if you want to take a look at one of those meetings. I think one's coming up this week. They're having them quite often. As a high school principal, I know how much work goes into graduation. I want to thank both the staffs, Sebastian River High School, Vero Beach High School. They were absolutely wonderful. I think Vero had 693, Sebastian 423. And it was just absolutely wonderful. We worried about that rain on Friday, but we got through it. And I'll be at the Indian River virtual graduation and then the career certificates for Treasure Coast Technical College coming up. I attended the Upward Bound graduation. That is a program we are in partnership with IRSC, and that is led by former principal Jody Idolette, and that was absolutely wonderful. It's always sad, but our retirees dinner, that was fun. That was fun. And known people a long time, and they were happy, I would say, but it was just great seeing everybody, and thank you to the retirees for all the years they have given to us. We appreciate you. I also attended the dual language Fellsmere presentation. If my grandson were here, that's where he would be going, to Fellsmere. I think that's something that I'd like other elementary schools maybe to develop. I'm starting to hear that a little bit more. But close connection with Fellsmere Elementary and the teachers, and what they do is outstanding. And just the students and the parents' testimony, they're just wonderful. Sebastian Elementary School had the Jungle Book play. Dr. Moore, Mr. Bass, Mr. Seymour and I were there, and that is our performing arts elementary, and they did a really, really great job, and it was fun. Right after Sebastian graduation, I went to the Gifford Cultural Museum. Dr. Moore spoke, Eric Seymour was there, and May 20th is the day for emancipation for blacks in Florida, and that was an absolutely wonderful presentation. And that was directed by Johnny May Perry, and the events that we had, the speakers that we had, the children that were presenting, this is their first one, and I think they're going to do a few more on that one. And just one more thing on scholarship nights. We've all been to scholarship nights, and it's interesting. We've been to many scholarship nights, what they're saying. They're not saying, oh, thank you to the math teacher for teaching me this equation, or thank you. But it's all about, thank you for being there for me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me come here at lunch just to talk to you. Students and administrators and teachers making connections, vital to the success of a school. And you can just feel it when you go to a school that those connections are there. And just finally, I want to thank every staff member as we end this year. It's, again, we've heard this for the last couple of years. It's tough. It's really tough, but I value you. I appreciate you. Our district staff, our support staff, our teachers, administrators, everyone. What you do on a daily basis is outstanding. So thank you very much. All righty, so that concludes our meeting, our business meeting agenda. Anything else before I adjourn? We all good? Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry. Can we just remind, Dr. Moore, can we remind everyone planning ahead what the meetings are for the future, since now we're ending school? I think we have revised monthly schedule for for July and for, is it for June and July? since January, okay, but people, we know that, but they don't, the citizens
Alan,
don't know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So can we just announce what the, just in case?
June 13th, I think, is our next.
Through the chair, if the question is our next
It'll be
time that
online.
this board comes together, we have a workshop on June 13th, and then we have our business meeting that evening.
So there isn't one at the end of June,
No. And then the next one will be when we approve the budget.
and that would be July 25th.
July, yes.
So once for both meetings in June, and then one for both meetings in July.
All right, thank you. The time is 9:10 PM. This meeting is adjourned.